Hello, listeners, and welcome to episode 11 of the Avocado Gamescast, the Avocado's gaming podcast. I'm Merve, and today we'll be talking about delayed and cancelled games. We'll also be revealing the secret shame in our backlogs. But before that, let's meet the people who are joining me today. First up, he founded SweekenandFanfic.com, but he swears he had nothing to do with eroticsweekenandstories.biz. It's PT.
Oh dear! No, it's reminding me of there's this ice skating anime that's going absolutely crazy on my Twitter right now. I guess I follow it. Yes, and there's a character named Victor, Viktor, and that is a notable character in the Suikoden series. So whenever I read that, I'm like, no, it's a totally different character. This man is a brawling man, cool guy, and like I don't know. I don't watch the ice skating anime, so I have no idea.
Well, you can use that as inspiration. Next, she's lounging in her Batman PJs while sitting in a Batman beanbag chair in front of a Batman poster with little bats painted on her nails. She sounds like a huge Captain America fan. It's Admirax.
I know you're joking, but an embarrassing amount of those things are actually true.
Well, that's why it's in your intro. And joining us all the way from Australia, the only reason we brought him on the podcast is because we mistakenly believed he had the inside scoop on Team Bondi's demise. It turns out he thinks that LA Noir is some kind of chocolate liqueur. Anyway, it's Ben.
G'day, mate.
Oh my god, you went there. You went for the stereotype.
Had to get in one, right?
One.
Sure.
Yeah, you definitely got to get one in there. Because there are going to be jokes about kangaroos and koalas coming up. And you got to be prepared for that. So how are you guys all doing today?
Doing fine.
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, glad to hear it. So let's get acquainted. What have you guys been playing lately? Let's start with Ben. What have you been playing recently?
I have been playing Devil May Cry 4, the HD Special Edition re-release, and that has made me question whether Devil May Cry 4 was ever actually any good, because that game's kind of shit.
No.
Am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Oh, yes,
no,
you definitely are allowed. You're definitely allowed to
Oh,
swear.
thank God. I remember loving that game when it came out first, and playing it now, it just... You know how Devil May Cry started off as a Resident Evil game?
I actually didn't know that. That's a
Yeah,
neat piece of trivia.
I believe that was the case. Yeah, where they, I think it was originally a Resident Evil game, and they kind of just thrown it at the mid development or something.
Yeah, the first one was originally Resident Evil 4, but then halfway through the game development, they're like, this game is nothing like a Resident Evil game. We're going to make it an entirely new game. And that's why it has all the locked camera angles and all that kind of stuff. And man, that stuff sucks in a Devil May Cry game. All the dumb puzzles and the fucking locked camera angles and the music doesn't make any sense because the game treats it like you're in a horror game until you get up to a fight, and then it's definitely not a horror game.
So
it doesn't
wait,
work.
Let me get this straight. Devil May Cry and Resident Evil were both existing franchises. They started making a Resident Evil game, realized it didn't fit as a Resident Evil game, so they grafted it onto a different franchise?
No. The very first Devil May Cry game only exists because they started developing Resident Evil 4. If you go and look at the history of Resident Evil 4, there's about 5 different games that were Resident Evil 4. And they just kept fucking up translating Resident Evil 4 into a proper 3D game.
Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought, but still pretty bad.
No, and then one of them ends up becoming Devil May Cry, and that's how the character action genre gets created, by them being really bad at making Resident Evil.
Well, thankfully Resident Evil 4 was really good, so it all turned out well.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
Yes, it's great. I should play it again. I own 4 or 5 different versions of that game through consoles and PC and all that weird stuff.
And apparently the Wii one is the best one? How often does that happen?
Almost never.
Apparently, I haven't actually got the Wii one. I only had the fucking GameCube one. But apparently the Wii one, just because it has the motion control pointer bullshit for your aiming, and apparently it's fantastic. So that happened. But anyway, back to Devil May Cry. The one thing that Devil May Cry has made me really, really realize is how much better Bayonetta is than Devil May Cry. It's so much better.
To be fair, Bayonetta had, the base of Devil May Cry to build on. But yeah, your point is well taken.
The 4th Devil May Cry, so they had a few to build on as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because I looked it up, because there's a character in... Have you guys played Devil May Cry?
I played 1, 3, and the opening to 4, I guess. So But yeah, I have a general idea what the game is like.
I haven't, but it's on my list of things I'll get around to eventually.
We'll skip it. Played Bayonetta instead. It is a character. Oh, sorry. Had you played it?
Oh no, I've never played it.
There is a character that gets introduced about like 3 levels into Devil May Cry 4 called Gloria, I think her name is. And you watch it now, and it's just Bayonetta. It's literally just Bayonetta. Really weird. And I actually had to go and check to make sure that Devil May Cry 4, whether it came out before or after Bayonetta, and turns out it came out the year before. But I think the best thing Bayonetta ended up doing was just dropping all the old like holdovers from the Resident Evil franchise in it. So like the fucking bad lock camera angles and those dumb puzzles where you look at things, it's just like a text block comes up like, oh, this means this, and you have to do this and this. Like I did the last level in Devil May Cry 4 before I'm just like, fuck it, I'm done with this. Which I spent the entire level like hitting these Beyblade spinning tops around trying to knock over walls. And that was the entire fucking level. Like, oh, what? It's bad. It's not a good game.
Why are there spinning tops?
Because fuck you, it's Devil May Cry. Like shit. Well, it's Capcom in general. I mean, I'm trying to remember. The first Onimusha game had a pretty infamously bad sliding puzzle. But there's water flowing at the bottom at the floor at the same time. So basically a water torture puzzle. And that was terrible. And that's what it's reminding me of immediately. And so Onimusha was basically Samurai, but Resident Evil, and, you know, all that fun stuff. And it was okay for the time. I can't imagine it was any good right now, but that's what it reminds me of. Like those type of games, and I've never played the Dino Crisis games, but I imagine they're pretty similar. Like this, you know, spooky thing plus, I don't know, these terrible puzzles, find the red key or do stuff, you know, that kind of junk.
Exactly that shit. And the worst bit that's really freaking me out is because I haven't played Devil May Cry 4 since it came out, which was like 2008 or something. But I remember one of the worst puzzles I've ever played in a video game is in that game. It's just before the last boss. You go into like a board game area, and there is a giant dice that you have to hit with your sword. And whatever the dice lands on, like if whatever it rolls, it's like a 4 or 6 or dice bullshit. Is just completely random, and you have to land on this specific square, and if you get unlucky, you're just stuck rolling this fucking dice for hours.
I think any puzzle that relies too much on inconsistent physics is just bound to cause frustration. So
it reminds me a little of the wacky dice maids in Gunstar Heroes, which is a completely different genre, but there are times where you could like roll like one die like before the exit, and oops, you're going back to the beginning. And
I mean, I don't mind
similar to that.
It's just you don't want randomness to stand between the puzzle solution and you, right? And I think a lot of game designers make that mistake. I don't know if you guys have ever played, say, Cube or Quantum Conundrum, which are these first-person puzzlers on PC and I also believe on console. And what they get wrong is what a game like, say, Portal gets very right, where, yes, physics matter a lot, but they're not inconsistent. If you solve the puzzle properly, then the physics in Portal work in your favor. Whereas you can know the solution to a puzzle in Quantum Conundrum or Cube, and an object you're carrying will just, you know, ragdoll around the map instead of landing in place where you want it to. And it makes puzzle solving really frustrating.
All I remember about that game was one of the key Portal designers at the time like went over to this company and made this game, and people were like, oh, she's developing it, it's going to be great. And no, it didn't turn out so well.
Yeah, it had a lot of good ideas in it. It needed way more time in the oven to iron out the physics and make the platforming less frustrating. It really should have gone third person, I think. And it could have been a really good game. It had all the pieces. It needed more time in the oven. Admirax, what have you been playing?
I haven't played anything major since we last spoke, but the last podcast I did it inspired me, unfortunately, to download Civ 5, which I'd never played. I've never played any of the Civ games. And for a solid 3 or 4 days, it consumed my life. It was awful.
That was the demo when I first played Civ 5, which was my first game, was just the demo, and oh no, it's been like 100 turns, start over. It's like, no.
I've seen that. It happens to everybody who plays Civ. They get into that just one more turn mentality, right?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it was like I would have to go to work the next day and be like, I should have gone to bed about 2 hours ago, but I'm really close to finishing the Louvre, so I guess a few more turns.
Yeah, I definitely get...
that's the exact reason I didn't buy Civ 5. I got hooked into fucking the first one on MS-DOS and lost, like, my entire Christmas holidays, which is the equivalent of you guys' summer holidays. Yeah, I'm not buying any Civilization games again.
No. And the only reason I stopped playing is because the last map that I started, I think I went a level too difficult for what I was ready for, and Montezuma has come through and just, like, demolished most of my cities. So I was finally able to put it down and walk away, and I haven't touched it since.
Yeah, you might want to hold off on that for a while.
Yeah.
All right.
Holy.
Yeah, so PT, what have you been playing?
I was gonna say I thought of her when I saw there was the announcement for the new Batman Telltale Batman game, and I noticed that Bruce Wayne looked a lot like Michael from GTA 5, and I couldn't get that out of my head. I was like,
oh yeah, he does.
Like, what's going on there? But for me, I mean, I'll try to make this quick. I've been playing kind of a lot of smaller games. I finally got to finishing Shadow Complex, the remastered version, which came out on Epic's weird little Steam sort of thing that they got there. And that was a game I believe was 2008 or something. I mean, it was a couple of years old. And I mean, it was fine. Like, I don't think it was the Metroid killer that a lot of people had like maintained it was back then. I think it has a lot of interesting ideas, and I'm okay with. I will play a decent Metroidvania if it's good, but it's also just, I don't know. It's kind of clumsy and such and fun, and the story was just, giant white male fantasy. I have a gun, and there's this terrorist group, and I'm going to go chase them one against all, and it was just really silly. But no, there was that, and gosh. I did not want to talk about too much about Civ 6 because they did the last podcast. Though there was actually a new patch this past Thursday.
What did the patch do?
It made the AI slightly less stupid.
It's always good.
It provided DirectX 12 support, which you would think would be at launch, but I guess not. And they added a few more. The interface is slightly better. Like, a few things are a little more clear. I mean, notably, spy stuff where if you fail, they'll say, okay, this is how you failed and this is why you failed, and such and such. And I like the little the little button where you have to click OK and such. It says, I see. Like, that's your response. You have to say, I see that my spy was killed in Russia because I tried to steal.
Like, the game's trying to confirm that you understand.
Yes, I confirm that I was a dummy that totally stole this thing. But no, it's. I mean, I think it's definitely a better game than launch. But like, I know Kappa has said this in the past. I mean, both on this podcast and on the forums. But that game still needs a patch or two to like really meet its potential, because there's still a lot of goofy bugs. There's still just really obnoxious AI routines that just don't make any sense. I mean, there was a fight where I was warring with Teddy Roosevelt basically the entire game, and he basically had one of my cities just dead to rights, and he ran away for no apparent reason. And I'm just like, Teddy, what are you doing? Like, you're 2 hits away from taking that city. Like, I'm preparing for the concept that you are going to take that. So, like, I'm 3 steps ahead here. Like, I'm just going to try to take it back eventually, but you got this one. Nice job. And like, he recovered. Like, but yeah, that was just. But no, beyond that, I mean, not a ton. I mean, Civ 6 is kind of stuck. Oh wait. Oh, actually, you should mention this. going back, I believe it was the second episode I was on here. I had gone on the running joke about how, oh, my computer this, computer that, and well,
what did your computer do this time?
Well, over the past such and such, I finally got an additional stick of RAM. It turned out after all this time that the original problem was that stick was just DOA. Because what happened was that the original stick I had died. I'm thinking, oh, I'll just switch out this one and see if that works. And no, it didn't. So that was my discovery. So I got that there, and then I upgraded to a GeForce 1050 Ti this past week, which is not like super great. I mean, it is a budget card, but it's better than my 660 that I've been running for a while. And so I was just kind of like running all these games again. Like, oh, and by the way, Doom is really, really good now. I mean, it was great before, but now it like runs at a clean 60, being really, really pretty. So that's fun. Civ 6 doesn't like to choke quite as much, which is nice.
I always thought Civ 6 would be more CPU intensive than graphically intensive, but maybe
it's a little of both. Like, you can't put on the extreme high textures.
Oh, okay. If you want your buildings to look super nice or whatever.
Oh, which, hey, sometimes you do, but because you're looking at them pretty much the whole game. But I actually have not tried the big bugaboo in the room quite yet, which I think you all know which one that is. That would be Arkham Knight. I have not tried that one yet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any saving that PC port
not
on
work
any.
Regardless.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Arkham Knight just fucked anyway, no matter what.
Yeah,
you do
I was
to
going
it.
to say I don't think there's any saving that on any graphics card.
Yeah, which is why I was sort of kind of joking about that. It's like, I don't know if I really want to like throw to the effort of doing that and such. But no, I've just been kind of going the left and actually. And one more thing before I go. Because of the graphics card, I've been playing a lot of Lightning Returns again, the third Final Fantasy 13 title, which is also the best one that those 3 games made.
So if you're willing to wade through 150 hours of so gaming, you can get to the 50 hours of good gaming.
Well, the third game. Well, I don't really think you need to play the previous 2. I mean, the story's nonsense regardless of how you play it. But this is the person who will defend 13 compared to a lot of people. I mean, I know that it's not well liked, and I'm aware of that. And yes, it is flawed, very flawed. But
that's a polite way of putting that.
I think a lot of games are slow to start. Like I've been playing Digimon Story this year, and that game takes, I would say, a good 20 hours before it really becomes what it's supposed to be. And,
so it's like 13.
Yeah, so it's just like a Final Fantasy game.
What's the reason to understand what they're saying in Digimon?
Yeah,
at least I understand. At least the dialogue makes sense in Digimon. I'll give it that.
There are no Fossies
or
or Lussies.
And Cecile and I can't believe that game has a fucking built-in glossary to it.
Well, I mean, most games have glossaries these days, but
like the codexes in Mass Effect or Dragon Age or what have you.
But to kind of go back to what I was saying there, I mean, it's different from the other 2 because it's a even more action-oriented game. It's actually it's based on a weird real-time clock because essentially you have a number of days to save the world. Basically, Lightning is on a mission from God. I believe that's actually said once.
Just like the Blues Brothers.
Like they're not even hiding it. And she's basically, going down to these 4 or 5 major locations and just completing quests, and everything is timed. And you have
kind of like Majora's Mask.
In a way, yes. Though I would say a little more strict. But
it sounds really stressful.
Yes, which is why I have a walkthrough on my right side of my screen when I play it, because there are people that have essentially just put it aside, saying, "Okay, we want you at this particular time to do this particular thing." And make sure you turn on, because there is an ability called chronostasis, which will freeze the clock, which is basically the only way you can do anything particularly, of anything being productive at all, is if you learn how to use that and fight enough monsters to keep your gauge up and such. But yeah, there's a walkthrough that's like, okay, do this and do that, and make sure you go to this particular train at this particular time so you can go to the next area. And it's fascinating that they figured that all out, but I would have never figured that out myself.
Okay, let me put it
And
this
that
way.
actually sounds a lot like the Dead Rising games, and how completely fucking impossible they get if you miss any of the timed things at all.
Well, and to be fair to this game, I think it's assumed that you will lose at least once because you'll run out of time and the world will end or whatever, and you'll essentially do New Game Plus where you're just back at it.
Ah, yeah.
I don't know if I like that style of game where I have to go through that much work and then it's all erased.
Though to be fair, well, I don't think you'd be a fan of Majora's Mask then because that's use the song of time, and that dungeon I just completed. Oops, well that never happened. I guess I have to. Well, though to be fair, the game is nice enough to say, oh yeah, you completed this dungeon. Oh, just go defeat the boss again.
Fair enough. All right, so just to mention briefly what I've been playing, I recently got Titanfall 2, and I haven't touched the multiplayer yet, but I have been playing the single-player campaign. And it's been receiving a lot of praise, and rightfully so.
Okay, have you got up to the research facility yet?
Yes, I have. I've beaten that level.
How fucking good is the research facility?
It's a really interesting level. The way there are a lot of puzzles where I don't know if should we give away the gimmick of that level? Let's not give it away, but let's just say there's a gimmick in that level that leads to some neat action puzzle solving that you wouldn't normally see in most shooters.
I'm going to put it this way. That game straight up fucking turns into first-person guacamole platforming.
It does at one point. Actually, multiple points, because then there's the other level where you have the gun that you use for the switches. I'm, again, not going to give anything away.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got an interesting mix of platforming and shooting that you won't typically see in a first-person shooter. It's a really inventive game. I don't know if I put it up there with the first-person shooter greats, but it's a game that I'm glad I bought, and it's a game that I'm glad I'm playing, for sure.
I would definitely put it up there with the first-person shooter. That's got to be my favorite first-person campaign I've ever played.
Oh, wow.
Like, the story is shit. The story is rubbish. I remember the first time I saw the very first trailer and they introduced, you're going to be, connecting with this robot and everything. Like, okay, this is how it's going to end. And it ends like that. Because it fucking obviously ends like that.
I will say the story isn't bad so much as it is purely perfunctory. It's just functional.
That's
it exists,
a better word, yeah.
And that's all it does. It doesn't get in the way.
It's there to... But that fucking research facility level, I want an entire game built around that idea. It's so cool.
Yeah, and there are other really cool ideas in some other levels too. I will say this about the game. It's one of the few games that I think really understands not just level design, but specific how it understands how you can modify a physical space, and that modifies the way the game works. A lot of the quote-unquote puzzles in that game are about modifying your environment so that you can traverse it, or modifying the environment to make a fight more favorable to you. And it's something that you don't typically see in a lot of, your typical Call of Duties, Battlefield, etc. It's not something you see in those kinds of games. So I think it's really neat to see it come up in a campaign like this.
Also, just before we go off it, I want to point out that has some of the coolest, just not exactly the best graphics in the world, because it's still running on Super Nintendo. That's insane.
But it's on Source. Yeah, it's crazy what they've managed to do with it.
But just the visual ideas in that game, it's only the second or third level or so, but when that factory that is building houses, and then you get to an entire town that's sideways stuck to a wall,
yeah,
and you're just what the fuck is even going on? But there are things you see in that game that just no other game has ever done. It's incredible. I love that game.
There's so many neat visual touches. My favorite is all the friendly robots have little happy faces painted on their stomachs, but if you interrupt what they're doing or take something away from them, that smiley face just turns into a blue frowny face, and they just shut down completely.
The friendly little man-sized robots, yeah.
Yeah, they're so much fun. So yeah, that's what we've been playing recently, and now let's segue to things that we haven't been playing recently. Because we can't play them now because they've been delayed. So, as I'm sure you've heard, or you may have heard, Persona 5 got delayed yet again. This time from Valentine's Day 2017 to early April. And this is a game whose release date has sort of been pushed back repeatedly. And now fans are starting to get a little antsy. I mean, they're antsy given the long delay between the Japanese release and the Western release, and delay has gotten to push back even further. But now they're quite frustrated, and understandably so. So me, as somebody who's anticipating the game, I've been, I understand that they're trying to make the best product possible when they release it. They don't want to make a shoddy product, and I get that. But part of me is also frustrated that it's taking so long. So I guess what I wanted to ask you guys is, how do game delays make you feel? Do you feel frustrated or sad, or do you feel happy that the game is getting extra polish? How do you feel when a game you're anticipating gets delayed?
Okay, I'll go first. Don't say anything. Basically, how I feel is there are so many games that I've been waiting for so long. Like Beyond Good and Evil 2, I'm still waiting for them to fucking officially confirm that. But I've kind of gotten to a point in my head where I don't assume a game is going to be out ever until I can see it on the shelf. So delays don't even register to me. And I remember the Final Fantasy 15 delay. It got delayed from September, I think, to end of November. And I remember seeing people getting really shitty about that. And I was just baffled that you could be upset about a 2-month delay in a game that's been announced 7 years ago.
Didn't somebody send death threats to a Kotaku reporter for breaking the story? Or he's not with another game?
That might have been another game.
I think that was No Man's Sky.
Oh, that was No Man's Sky, yeah.
No Man's Sky, Hello Games got death threats.
It wasn't only Hello Games, it was the reporter who broke the story who got death threats.
Yeah, FF15, the reporter got death threats. There were death threats all around because the internet is a piece of shit and no one should be on it.
Oh god, yeah.
But yeah, I remember the last time a delay really got to me was do you remember the game Prototype on the 360?
I remember it. I mean, it's also on PC, I believe.
It's just got released on Xbox One and PS4 and shit now as well. So, but that game got delayed 8 months or something.
Yeah, kind of like Mankind Divided this year got delayed about 8 months.
That got pissed me off, but it came out and it was awesome, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the time when these delays happen, it's because, if they release them on, quote unquote on time, they're going to release a broken product that you can barely play through. But when they give it, that extra few months for polish, then you usually come out with a pretty good product.
Or at least better.
Yeah. I'll give it that. Yeah, so there have been a lot of games that got delayed this year. Last Guardian got several delays. Deus Ex Mankind Divide was delayed from February to August. Gravity Rush 2 got delayed into next year. So it's very, very common. Yeah, Gravity Rush 2
got delayed?
Yeah, it's now coming out in 2017, I believe in January.
Oh, motherfucker. Sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't very
excited for that. It's supposed to be next week.
Yeah, I think what happened was Kotaku mistakenly reported it. They reported on the delay, but then when they were reporting games that were coming out in the next few weeks, they'd still had it. They still had it listed as the original release date. So I think that's how it spread. But yeah, it's been delayed to January 18th in Australia.
My EB dude, I was there buying Pokemon the other day. He's like, I remember Gravity Rush is next week. Yeah, and we're both getting really excited for it. Fuck.
Yeah, it got delayed by a month. It was not a very widely reported delay. I'm still seeing people all around saying that it's set to come out in early December, and I'm like, nuh-uh, it got delayed.
Okay, so apparently everything I said,
you said it exactly like that.
Affected by delays, because that really hurts.
Yeah, I'm actually playing through the original Gravity Rush right now on PS4. I'm not itching to go buy Gravity Rush 2 when it comes out, but it's a nifty concept for sure.
You will when it ends.
Pardon me?
You will after the end of that game.
Oh, does it have like a cliffhanger ending?
It just doesn't fucking end the story.
Oh.
Like, everything it sets up is just like, and the credits are rolling, and you're like, what about every fucking question you asked? Sorry, that.
I'm gonna finish the fight. Halo 2's credits roll.
What? Yeah, that's when you get really mad over a game delay. When a game ends on a cliffhanger and the sequel just doesn't come out.
Like Beyond Good and Evil.
Or Half-Life.
Did you guys beat Beyond Good and Evil?
I've played Beyond Good and Evil.
Did you see the ending?
I like Jade is the chosen one or something. I don't really know what's going on.
If I recall, it's was it the pig or was it Jade herself that was like clearly infected at the end or something? Is that what it was?
He gets infected by the fucking spore thing and is gonna die. And that I've been waiting for the next game for like 17 years or something.
Yeah, I think it came out in 2003, so
about
wow. 13 or 14 years. Yeah,
and it doesn't help that they keep releasing trailers for it.
They released a trailer for it? I mean, I remember there was that trailer with the pig dude and Jade out in the desert next to a car.
Yeah, that was 2007, I believe, and then there was a second trailer that was apparently leaked, and I'm doing air quotes with it. I just realized you can't see me doing. But it was like a gameplay target demo of Jade running through this city, and it looked awesome. And then they released concept art of it a year later on a stream where Michael Ansel held up a poster of Jade's new design for it. And then the year after that, they confirmed it was still in development at E3, but weren't going to say anything. Then Michael Ansel left Ubisoft to make fucking Wild. Then now it's apparently happening again because there's more concept art for it coming out.
Yeah, I feel like it's never been one of Ansel's priorities, but it's something that he's like. It's kind of like one of those passion projects you keep working on in the background, with the hope that it'll become something one day.
What he said is that, like, the scope of the game got too big for the PS3 and 360 to be able to realistically do, so they basically held off until the next generation of consoles came out so they could make what they wanted to make.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that being a reason for delaying it. So sort of like The Last Guardian, where they need to delay it till the PS4.
I'm reminded, and I always remember this, is that someone I knew in another forum like bought a PS3 for The Last Guardian, and he was very disappointed.
Yeah,
that's right. I know someone who bought one for Final Fantasy Versus 13.
It became 15, so it's all very weird.
Yeah, it seems like games. This happens to games a lot. In fact, it seems to happen all the time. Like games get delayed or change into a different form. Why do you guys think this is? Like, why do you guys think game delays are so common?
In the case of Square Enix, I think they were much like a lot of Japanese developers, just caught by the sheer amount of extra work it requires to make a good high-definition video game.
You think delays were less common in the past when they didn't have to make high def, or
I don't recall to this level. I mean, we were bringing up Final Fantasy 13 earlier via Lightning Returns, and those three games are essentially like one game that used all of its assets. Like, they had extra assets they didn't use for the original that they used for 13.2 and in Lightning Returns. It was just they made all these assets and they didn't have a plan. Like, oh, hey, are we ever going to use these things? And
I remember they did have a plan originally because it was supposed to be the Fabula Crystalla Novellis trilogy or whatever.
Fabula Nova Crystallis, yes.
I'm glad someone remembers that bullshit.
I remember it.
It's some JRPG bullshit. Doesn't really matter.
But yeah, it's just that's they didn't have a plan. They really didn't have an idea. I don't think the Japanese game industry knew exactly what the term vertical slice is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they made their vertical slice and then they didn't bother to build the rest around it.
Or they didn't they never made one to say, oh, hey, we're making this game now. What do you think? They just made the game without a whole lot of outside feedback. And then when that original demo came out, people were like, okay, cool. But yeah, I think it was, I mean, Square was one, there was just a lot of companies that just struggled a lot during the original, PS3 360 launch. And that's why games just took forever to get out for a while. And I think Square has finally gotten their act together, finally, though Kingdom Hearts 3 will probably never come out at this rate. But
I mean, now that we're sort of into the HD era, do you think we'll get fewer game delays now that studios are used to working in this sort of environment?
I would say almost certainly no. If anything, we're going to get more. Because I reckon a big thing that has happened is, okay, games have gotten prettier. We've gotten prettier graphics and everything, but they've also gotten way more complex. And it's just fucking hard to make games. Like, if you're looking at, like, the old Super Nintendo era or whatever, you've got, like, a side-scrolling platformer. They're not... Like, it's difficult to make a good one that's fun, but it's not, like, technically difficult to make that game versus the games that we're getting out now where they have, like, full open worlds being simulated with, like, thousands of characters, dynamic weather, and all that kind of shit. And it's just hard. That shit is complicated as hell to make. So it takes a long time.
Yeah, do we think that this might be an example of corporate miscommunication between departments? I have a feeling that a lot of big studios probably get told, all right, this is your release date. Make this game happen by then, even if that would be logistically impossible.
So,
well,
part of me, I don't know if...
The corporate thing is a lot of what happened with fucking Assassin's Creed Unity and why that came out such a broken pile of shit.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's part of the explanation that they set. I think that's more of an explanation for when a game meets its release date, right? That's how you know that the investors have been putting the screws on. When a game gets delayed, I feel like, part of it is I'm not sure that publishers and developers are necessarily always setting unrealistic deadlines. Delayed games now are so common, right? That if it's a problem of trying to appease investors, well, investors must have learned by now that these deadlines aren't credible, right? Otherwise, they're like the worst investors in the world.
No, because they're investors.
No, investors are unteachable.
You'd think they have learned by now, maybe.
I think one of the problems, like, for example, to kind of throw Nintendo into this, I think investors are going to be not very happy when Super Mario Run comes out and it does well, but it's not like this Pokemon Go like phenomenon, and they're going to go, why can't every game be like Pokemon Go? And you just have to explain to them
that's not how games work, right?
No, at all. So
yeah, I feel like there's, again, I'm not a rich person who's part of the investment community. I feel like there's a sort of dichotomy between people who are smart investors and they understand the market and the industries they're investing in very well, and rich dudes who just think money makes more money. And I feel like companies spend a lot of time trying to appease the latter, when really it's the former who's going to be more invested in your company in the long run.
Well, did anyone ever read the interviews with KJ Inafune after he left Capcom?
Enlighten us, please. Sorry.
Basically, KJ Inafune, if you don't know, is the guy that made Mega Man, and he went on to make Mighty Number 9, which I think is awesome, and everyone needs to shut up about that game because it's rad.
I thought it could have been a lot better. Has always been my argument.
It could have been better, definitely. The graphics are awful, but I love that game. And
I haven't played the game. I can't criticize it. I will criticize its trailer.
I'm a fan and I've been playing every Mega Man game in chronological order for the past 2 weeks. But anyway.
All right. What did KG Inafune say in that interview?
He left, and basically his whole thing, like his whole reason for quitting Capcom and everything, is that Capcom and a lot of other Japanese game developers and everything, because Japan has that whole like culture of respect for elders and seniority trumps everything and all that kind of shit. And so the senior members of most of these companies, like Square, like Capcom, like all that shit, you have to do what they say because they're the boss. They've been there the longest and everything. But they're also not game developers. They're business people, which is what's fucking over. Like, because a lot of the
I assume that's what's happening to Konami these days.
Yeah, like Konami did it. Fucking SNK did it before, and they've only just got out of pachinko slot hell. Capcom went through their whole like let's piss off all our customers as much as we can phase. Square shit the bed with like even if you like Final Fantasy 13, they shit the bed with Final Fantasy 13.
Oh no, I definitely agree with that. I mean, the sales for each of those games were not great
Poor.
as they went on, and I totally understand that.
Yeah, and it's like this whole like a lot of these companies they have this corporate culture at the top of them, which are these people like saying we're the business people, we're going to tell you to make this game, and the game developers and the people actually making the games like, but that's a bad idea, but we can't tell him because he's the boss, and that's why if you look up oh shit, I forget his name. Yoshitaro Ono, I think, is the guy that makes Street Fighter, was desperately begging the heads of Capcom to let him make Darkstalkers 4. That's the game he really wants to make. He even had to start a fucking online petition to get votes to prove to the people that there was interest in Darkstalkers 4. And, oh shit, it's a Darkstalkers 3. Anyway, that's beside the point. And he got like 100,000 signatures or something, and they still won't let him make it. He's still making Street Fighter. But yeah, it's just this whole culture of like the corporate people are the heads of these businesses, telling all the people that actually know what game design is and what good games are, what they should be doing. And
yeah, I mean, it did happen earlier this year with Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. Some reports from the inside of Eidos Montreal have come out, and basically microtransactions are in the game because Square Enix wanted them there. In fact, they had developed the entire game, right? And they developed, I mean, I'm not talking about the Breach additional mode. They had developed the entire single-player campaign. And then Square Enix was like, a few months before release, you have to put microtransactions in there. So that's why it feels like the microtransactions are completely unnecessary. It's because the game was actually balanced for you not to ever want to use microtransactions because they weren't even supposed to be in the game.
I didn't play it, but I know Dead Space 3 had a similar problem.
Yeah. And again, it was because it came on from on high that you guys got to put this in.
That was on the same as Evolve. Apparently, like you guys remember the big fucking furor about all the like
all
microtransactions and how. Yeah, the whole reason that stuff happened is because the developers, when they were making the game, said, I think it was Turtle Rock were making it.
Yeah.
They we want to make sure maps for everyone are always free, like so the community doesn't get split when new map packs and everything are released. And I forget who published that. Was it like 2K or something?
Yeah, 2K published it.
They were like, well, okay, we'll let you do the map packs free and everything, but that means monsters have to cost like $50 or whatever the fuck it was, and it killed the game.
Well, yeah. wasn't corporate infighting the reason that new Silent Hill game got canceled too?
Oh, yeah. That's a fucking story.
Yeah, that seems like I don't really know too much about that story, but it seems like Hideo Kojima had been butting heads with the top brass at Konami for a while. And then things came to a head. Ben, do you know more about it? You actually do have the inside scoop on a lot of studio demises. Your intro wasn't as much of a joke as I thought.
Hideo Kojima spends a lot of money making games, like a ridiculous amount of money. That's why there's no ending in Metal Gear Solid 5 or Metal Gear Solid V, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, Konami aren't happy with him like spending money. Like if do you guys know the story behind Metal Gear Revengeance? The full thing that happened with that game?
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance? Yeah, I don't know the story behind it. I know it came out. It was decently well received.
It's an amazing game.
But I agree. It's great, actually. Yes. So.
Even if it is tainted by Metal Gear Solid bullshit, which yeah.
Not a Metal Gear Solid bullshit it's part of the package. You just got to take the good with the bad.
What happened when that game was originally announced? I think it was called Metal Gear Solid Rising, and it was actually being developed internally by what is Hideo Kojima's team called? Like Fox Team or whatever. Yeah. No, it's the Fox engine, and he has. Well, anyway, his like internal team in Konami were developing that game, and Hideo Kojima had left it up to, like, this guy is your game.
Kojima
I'm going to let you make a game without my involvement. Kojima Productions, thank you. And so he left it, and then he went off and was like, just leave you guys to do your own thing. Came back, and the guys hadn't made shit. Like, they had made a cool cutting engine, and that was about it, and they hadn't figured out how to make a game out of it yet. And it was apparently he was out drinking and met one of the dudes from Platinum and was, like, just bitching to Platinum about, like, the problems he was having. And the next day, the dude from Platinum came with, like, a working white box prototype demo of the game, like, hey, we could make it. And that's how Platinum made it. But they spent millions of dollars and months of development time making nothing. And so, yeah, Konami don't like Hideo Kojima. And Hideo Kojima don't like the restrictions Konami keep putting on him. At the same time, kind of unrelated to that, Konami are trying to leave game development and put all their money into developing pachinko slot machines, which are like Japanese versions of just like the normal slot machines that you use for gambling. Yeah. And so fucking Metal Gear Solid 5 came out. They spent tons of money making that because they spent tons of money on everything he does. And they just got sick of his shit, basically, and fired him. And then he was like, well, fuck you all. And he was leaving, and Konami were like, actually, we know you didn't fire him. He's still working for us. As photos of his, like, going away party were being posted on the internet.
Yeah.
And after that...
I remember that part of the story. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say Kojima's a perfect person or that he's not difficult to work with. But at the same time, Konami's really just trying to shit the bed here.
Oh, yeah, they're trying to, like, burn all their fucking bridges. And, like, Kojima spends a lot of money making games and everything, but those games fucking sell. So you're making money off them, who cares?
Yeah, just let him do what he wants to do. I think Sony's sort of jumped on board with him now, and I think they're helping finance Death Stranding. Is that it?
Yeah, Death Stranding or Stranding or...
Death Stranding.
It
has naked Norman Reedus in it. That's what matters. Yeah,
what the fuck was that trailer? Hey,
I mean, no idea.
The way I put it is, you know, if Konami wouldn't let Kojima have fully clothed Norman Reedus in a horror game, Kojima's gonna put naked Norman Reedus in some fucked up open world bullshit game or whatever the hell he's making. I don't even know. We'll see in a few years.
I was gonna say, like, do we know exactly what that game is, like, at all?
All he said about it is that it's a game about ropes instead of sticks. So take from that what you will.
He's also suggested that it's been...
Nothing, actually, but okay.
So he suggested that it'll be open world, but beyond that, there's so much stuff you could do in an open world, who knows what the fuck it will be. Yeah, so it seems like sometimes publishers get tired of devs' bullshit. And sometimes they cancel their games. Like they canceled Silent Hills with Kojima and Guillermo del Toro and Norman Reedus. Are there any other interesting... Sorry?
Junji Ito was doing the monster design for that game. Do you guys know who Junji Ito is?
I have heard of him, but I don't know exactly who he is.
Go look up the comic The Amagira Fault and then never sleep again.
I will do that after this podcast.
He's this horror comic. He's a horror mangaka or whatever you want to call him. And I have read one of his comics called The Amagira Fault, and I'm never reading anything else he makes because that is the scariest thing I've ever read in my life. It's, oh my god, I can't believe that game was cancelled.
Yeah, it could have been really something special. They had assembled a lot of talent, and it seems like Konami just like canceled that out of spite.
Pretty much.
Yeah, there have been a lot of sort of very high profile games that have been canceled lately.
Also, I have to say, nice segue into the canceled games topic.
Thank you. I do like pointing out how smooth my segues are. It makes me. There's actually been sort of a running joke on the podcast because I used to be so terrible at segues, and I got slightly better, and then I couldn't stop pointing out how amazing I was at segues now. Anyway, there have been a lot of these high-profile games that have been canceled lately. What I wanted to mention was, do you guys remember, whenever BioWare says they're going to come up with a new game, it's big news, right? And so they said they were developing this 4-player co-op game called Shadow Realms, and they semi-quietly canceled it last year.
Sorry, I did not realize that one was being cancelled.
Yeah, it's been cancelled. That's not coming out.
There was gameplay footage of that, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was gameplay footage. They had a gameplay demo and everything. People had played part of the game, and I guess it just didn't meet with their quality standards. And the reception to it was pretty poor, to be frank.
Well, no one plays a BioWare game for multiplayer, do they? You play it for the story.
Yeah, I mean, Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was hella fun. Don't get me wrong, but that's not why I bought Mass Effect 3.
Yeah. And have any of the other games actually had multiplayer? Like, none of the Dragon Ages did, none of...
Inquisition did.
Did Inquisition have multiplayer?
It does have multiplayer. I've never tried it, because... I think I've actually played it once. Yeah, I think I've played it once. It's just not... It's not what I bought Dragon Age Inquisition for. I still haven't finished the DLC. I've got 150 hours in that game on one playthrough. Partway through the DLC. It's huge. I've never felt compelled to find multiplayer.
A week after the game came out and couldn't find any matches, which says a lot about it.
It didn't have this. It didn't have the staying power of, say, Mass Effect 3's multiplayer, which people still play to this day. Because I guess the 4-player dungeon crawl doesn't translate that well, especially given Inquisition's mechanics. So yeah, Shadow Realms. That's a pretty high-profile one that got canceled. Do you guys know of any other high-profile games that got canceled? I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. The one I had down, which is probably the one that hurts the most, is do you guys ever see the trailer for Mega Man Universe?
No, but is that supposed to be an RPG set in the Mega Man universe, or
no. Wasn't Universe like a Little Big Planet sort of thing, where you could make levels, or was that something else?
Yeah, kind of. It was very hard to figure out what it was because the trailer was all live action and stop motion with only a couple of seconds of gameplay. But what I've been able to pass from what the game was supposed to be was it was a collection of every Mega Man classic 1 through 6 level remade in this new engine with a level editor, with guest characters. You could play as Ryu from Street Fighter, you could play as Arthur from Ghouls and Goblins, you could play as Bad Box Art Mega Man. You could apparently put different bits of people onto so you could be Mega Man but with Arthur's lance and being able to do Hadoukens, and it had a soundtrack by the Megas, who are this amazing Mega Man cover band that I am dearly in love with, and then it all got canned.
Did they ever exactly explain why? Wikipedia just says it was cancelled due to, quote unquote, various circumstances.
Basically, what happened is, this is my personal interpretation of what happened, so there's nothing confirmed or anything about this, but it came out and that Mega Man Legends 3 was also being in development at the same time, right?
Which is what I'm more crushed by, to be quite honest with you. I'm more crushed by that cancellation.
Oh, I'm sure I will be when I get around to playing Mega Man Legends, but I haven't actually played them yet.
Those are two great games.
But yeah, those two were both coming out, and then Keiji Inafune, and Mega Man is Keiji Inafune's baby, quit Capcom and started shit-talking Capcom all over the press, and then suddenly all the Mega Man games got cancelled. So, I kind of think it was out of spite, but that's just my personal.
It seems like a lot of Japanese developers make decisions based on spite. I don't know if that's a great business strategy.
Well, they're all fucking dying, so apparently not.
Yeah, that is not good for the industry. One game that I want to mention that got canceled was Prey 2 essentially got canceled. And now the game that's coming out that is going to be called Prey is something completely different. Prey 2 is originally supposed to be this bounty hunting spacefaring game. And then it got, it was in development by, I believe, Human Head, I want to say. And then Bethesda transferred it to Arcane. Arcane worked on it briefly. And then essentially that got canceled. And now whatever is coming out as Prey next year is something completely different from what Prey 2 was supposed to be. And yeah, that game spent a lot of time in development hell before they finally pulled the plug.
I don't care what the new Prey ends up being, it could be the best game ever, and I'm still going to be shitty we don't get Prey 2, because that game looks so cool.
Yeah, I like the idea of this whole space bounty hunter thing. Another sort of space bounty hunter game we're probably never going to get. Was never technically canceled because it was never technically greenlit. Obsidian was had drawn up plans for a game called Backspace, which is basically Fallout in space with time travel. And that sounds amazing.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, that game is probably never going to get made.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it tears me apart that there are all these awesome game ideas that we're never going to see because, there's not the resources to make all these games, unfortunately.
Well, was that when Obsidian was still with Bethesda?
I'm assuming. Obsidian's gone kind of from AAA to AA of late, so I don't think they ever
there's a whole big story about that too.
Let's hear it. This is story time.
Okay, basically, Obsidian were contracted by Bethesda to make Fallout New Vegas.
Right.
And Bethesda are a scummy piece of shit company. And basically, so Bethesda had an agreement in their contract with Obsidian.
You have to make 85 on Metacritic, right?
Yeah, have to get 85 on Metacritic. Otherwise, we're not going to give you like all the bonuses, and you're not going to get like, you need the money basically.
They got 84.
Then,
yeah,
Bethesda. They went to like Obsidian and were like, "Hey, is this game ready?" And they're like, "No, it's full of bugs." And they're like, "Fuck you, release it now," and forced them to release a broken game specifically so that it wouldn't get enough score on Metacritic, so they didn't have to pay them because they basically
ended up hitting 84. Actually, I remember this, which is one short of what they needed.
But yeah, basically Bethesda were trying to kill Obsidian so they could buy Obsidian and force them to just make Fallout games for the rest of existence. And so Obsidian almost died from that. That almost killed the company. And they're like, we'll buy you out. And Obsidian were like, no, fuck off. So instead of letting Bethesda buy them out, they fired a lot of their staff, really, really downsized hard, and were like, we are going to start this Kickstarter. This is our last ditch. If it fails, we're done as a company. And so they started the Pillars of Eternity Kickstarter. It is the most funded Kickstarter, I think, in history. And they managed...
I think one of the most funded gaming one, at least.
Yeah, and it basically brought Obsidian back so they could actually still exist as a company. And because their whole thing with making
RPGs,
Pillars of Eternity is this is our game, because every other game Obsidian have made has always been under contract and is owned by someone else. Like Alpha Protocol is owned by
Sega.
Oh, Sega, is it?
Yeah, Sega.
And every other game they've made is owned by someone else. So their big thing with Pillars of Eternity is we're kickstarting this, so it's our game. We own it. It's our baby. No one can take it. And then I remember because Tyranny is Red something is publishing it. That it's not their own game, but they're specifically had in their contract that anything we make under you guys is ours. You can't take it. They have this whole
it's
really
their IP, but they have the publisher takes it basically.
That's why they've gone from releasing these AAA games to these much smaller PC only games, because they're doing it all themselves now because they got fucked over so hard by Bethesda.
Yeah, Bethesda is really a company that I don't have much praise for. They do a lot of very scummy things, and they have not received the same level of critique or scrutiny that, say, Activision or EA or Ubisoft have. Partially because they're a slightly smaller company. ZeniMax is, not as big as the Activision is, but they've been engaging in some pretty scummy and shady business practices for a while. Most recently, they have stopped sending out review copies until a day before release. So now, on the day of release,
how the game is so broken.
Yeah, that was the problem with, say, Dishonored 2. Reviews came out a few days after it came out that the game was completely broken. Yeah, and now that's what's going to happen from here on in. Bethesda has a reputation for releasing broken, buggy games that people really want to play. They'll release these broken, buggy games and the bad reviews will come out after everybody's already bought the games.
Or in the case of Fallout or Skyrim, the fans will fix the game themselves, which I just find deplorable and terrible, and I don't understand why people accept that.
Yeah, especially when for a lot of games, like say the terrible Dark Souls port from a while back, that was fixed by some guy in about 2 hours.
Well,
I believe it was.
The thing about the Dark Souls port, I mean, for one thing, it wasn't a good port. Let's just get that right out of the way. It was just a basic port. It was just made by people that had no idea that they want like higher graphical settings. Oh, they'd like to use a gamepad, or rather, they'd like to use a keyboard, rather. Like what?
I mean, I think it was made for people who knew that people wanted this. They just had no experience making it, so they just did a straight up port.
From Software ever released a PC game before Dark Souls?
No, I believe they have not. Dark Souls was their
I know
first.
The big thing that is because apparently Final Fantasy 13-3 Lightning Returns or whatever, that's the most basic bitch-ass PC port I've ever seen.
No. Let me clarify that. Actually, the first game is terrible and the PC port. Lightning Returns is actually the best PC port of the three. Like
that's bad.
It runs properly. It ran perfectly okay on my old rig, but now it runs essentially 60 hard straight. Except it'll dip 30 occasionally between battles, but that's not a huge deal. But it'll jump to 60 pretty quickly. But no, that is the most stable port of the three. Like they still haven't fixed the first two games, just having these weird frame rate problems, or probably not using like multiple cores. Just basic stuff that you just should not, be letting go at all. But no.
I haven't seen the first two on PC. Sorry, so my mistake. But I think one of the things is like the PC scene and everything isn't really a big thing in Japan. So a lot of developers, like Japanese developers specifically, don't really know that much about what like the PC scene is. So when they release PC ports, they're Dark Souls.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate that PC gaming sort of hasn't caught on to the same degree in Japan. In Japan, the PC is seen more of as a place to play visual novels and the like, or MMOs. It's not really seen as a serious gaming machine.
Well, in general, like even consoles are suffering these days. It's a strictly mobile universe over there.
Yeah, it's because they spend so much time on like public transport and shit going to work, so they're all just playing their. I think that's the only place that the Vita sells.
Yeah, so you don't really see. I mean, the gaming space is going to be different depending on where in the world you are, for sure. And Japan is very different from say North America or Australia or other countries when it comes to their gaming space. Yeah, so to bring it back to canceled games, there's one more that I wanted to mention, and if there are others that you guys wanted to mention, please bring them up. It was a game that was developed by Team Bondi, or it was in development by Team Bondi, or people formerly of Team Bondi.
It's Bondi.
Bondi. Sorry, Bondi. I've been calling it Bondi the whole time.
That was going
to It's the Team Bondi. It's the Team Bondi alarm over there.
That is the Team Bondi alarm. Yeah, unfortunately, fire trucks sometimes pass by my apartment. Anyway, Team Bondi was developing this game called, and I apologize for the title. It is not the title that I would have come up with it. It's called Horror of the Orient. Again, I apologize for the title. And it was by guys from Team Bondi. I think the assets from Team Bondi have been bought up by another Australian studio publisher called KMN. And they're developing this game. It was going to be published, I believe, by Warner Brothers, and they've been working on it for a few years until it was officially canceled, I believe, last year. It was supposed to be basically like, your Grand Theft Auto style game, but set in 1930s Shanghai. And that sounds really neat to me. How many games have you played set in 1930s Shanghai? But they just couldn't get it working for whatever reason, and then it kind of evaporated and died. And it sort of makes sense, because Team Bondi was nearly killed making L.A. Noire. Apparently they had overstress themselves and try and develop it, and Rockstar basically had to intervene and rescue that game from being a total disaster. So maybe this game wasn't in the best of hands to begin with, and they couldn't bring it to market.
I am like 90% sure that Horror of the Orient would have sucked if it came out. Like, I don't have any faith in those guys, and it is actually like kind of, because I know a bunch of people that were in game development around Australia in the time, and so everything I know about what happened with Team Bondi is kind of like they knew a guy who knew a guy, because the Australian development scene isn't very big. So like there were like 3 or 4 major companies at the time. There was Chrome, there was Chrome are the guys that made Ty the Tasmanian Tiger, which I'm not sure if anyone outside of Australia has heard of.
We've definitely heard of it.
I don't think anyone's played it. I've never even seen one of those games in real life. There was Pandemic, who were the guys that made Saboteur.
Pandemic they're not around anymore, are they?
They're dead as shit. There is 2K Australia. They are the guys that made Borderlands pre-sequel.
Yeah.
And there was so those were the 3 big major companies, right? And so THQ bought Pandemic, so that died because THQ. I forget who bought Chrome, but they also died as well. And then 2K Australia managed to live for a while because they were doing a lot of the grunt work on like what's the game where you're underwater and there's Andrew Ryan?
Bioshock 2. They did Bioshock 2 actually, if I remember correctly.
They apparently did a lot of like just like the raw grunt work on all of them, but I don't have that much information on that anyway.
Yeah, they're 2K. They're 2K Marin for a while, right?
Something like that.
What they're called, yeah.
But yeah, basically what happened is, so those 2, like Pandemic and Chrome, those were the 2 big studios in Australia, and they closed down. So there was a lot of talent like left in Australia, but they didn't have anywhere to work. And around that time was when Team Bondi were developing LA Noire, but Team Bondi were not a game development company. That is, or at least that's what I've heard. Sorry. So again, all this is secondhand information. Basically, they made that facial mocap technology.
Yeah.
Like they were the company that developed that, and then they wanted to make LA Noire as a game to show off their technology so they could sell it to other people. So Team Bondi were making that. They got involved with Rockstar. Rockstar were helping them publish it and everything. And then after LA Noire came out, which, by the way, completely unrelated, I don't think was actually very good. I think the mocap stuff looks creepy as hell. It looks like weird things, like faces slathered over the skeletons that aliens are trying to pretend to know what humans look like.
It feels like the facial mocap. The reason it feels like that is because the facial mocap and the body animations don't match each other very well.
Yeah, they're really, really radically different, aren't they?
Anyway. These lovingly recreated faces with these flapping bodies that don't do what the faces are
fucking
doing.
People.
Anyway, it's unnerving. Yeah, sorry.
It was a success. That's what's important. But it came out, and then some fucking dirt started coming out about Team Bondi. There was a dude. Ed.
So one controversy, Ed, what's I
think the guy's name is Ed. The dude that ran Team Bondi.
Brandon McNamara was the guy.
I knew it had a Mc in it. They fired a bunch of people just before the game came out, then didn't include them in the credits because fuck you. They were pushing people to work like just ridiculous hours, like 12-hour days, that kind of thing. They were just treating their staff like garbage, basically. Apparently,
I think the spouse person got involved briefly.
Yeah, I think that happened. Apparently, like working the I've already forgotten his name. You just told me
Brendan McNamara.
Brendan McNamara. Yeah. Apparently, that dude was just like the arsehole to work for, just like the worst person in the world. And like, so yeah, like I said, it's a bit personal because, like, so Chrome and Pandemic closing down, that was like burning the city down of Australian game development. But there was still kind of like a good reputation. That had happened because the Australian dollar basically got too strong and like it wasn't affordable to like keep funding these companies, because I think that was the time when the American dollar was doing really, really shit and our dollar was actually worth more than yours. Then the Team Bondi thing happened, and that was like salting the earth, because that just everyone like saw them and like kind of saw that as how Australian game development worked, and that's why
Australian development is now all indie these days.
Yeah, like basically what's had to happen is all those people that left, that were like all these really talented people that were like sitting around without any fucking companies to work in, have like started developing their own studios. So we're getting like Assault Android, Cactus, Hands of Fate, Dust Force, like I think Fruit Ninja, Half Brick were around before all that. They're the only ones that survived really. But yeah, whole big story. And so yeah, that Brendan McNamara dude isn't really a game developer from what I could tell. He was the technology developer of the mocap stuff. So then when he was trying to make For the Orient, and I don't think it would have been very good. I just think it wasn't being made by people that made good games.
Yeah, I mean to be fair, at that point, basically the assets for the game had been bought up by Kennedy Miller Mitchell. So it wasn't exactly Team Bondi who was working at the game. It was just some former people from Team Bondi and a bunch of other game developers. So who knows what would have come out of it. But yeah, the pedigree there is not great, given that L.A. Noire was basically rescued from disaster from Rockstar's intervention.
And apparently Rockstar have said that they hated working with Team Bondi as well and would never do it again, which that's not a glowing recommendation.
Especially from Rockstar, which are not we're not angels themselves.
Yeah, they had that whole fucking... Didn't they have their own big like spouse thing, and the voice actor for Nico was like making videos to earn money because he didn't make any money on Grand Theft Auto 4?
Yeah, I recall that he didn't... Yeah, the stipend was not great. And he complained about it, and that made news for a couple of weeks. But beyond that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it's kind of mismanagement, and it's part of what's led to the current voice actor strike, is that voice actors often don't receive residuals. They receive shit pay for recording, a bunch of lines, and then games go on to be successes, and they see none of that cash. So yeah, that's part of the reason.
Did you read their list of demands?
I mean, okay, so that's not the main reason they're striking. They're mainly striking because working conditions are shit.
I am baffled by some of that. Like, they had one of their demands is like, I want to know what character I'm voicing before I sign a contract. Like, how do you not do that already?
Yeah, and things like they're having them record in like 4-hour sessions, and I mean, that's not so bad. It's pretty bad if you're talking straight for 4 hours. But for a lot of these people are doing grunts and efforts and other kinds of noises.
Yeah,
and
like
if you do that for 4 hours straight,
4 hours,
you're shredding your vocal
cords.
cords. Kill you. Yeah, these people are shredding their vocal cords for cash, and they're not getting paid very well to do it. They're not seeing any residuals. And on top of that, they're making choices where they don't get to see like the character they're recording for. I mean, it's not only just like knowing the name of the characters. Sometimes, artists have boundaries and things they're uncomfortable with. Like, for example, if they have to record, say, a sex scene, they can't know that in advance, whether or not they're going to have to push up against that boundary. And to me, not being told whether or not you're going to have to push up against your boundaries, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, they only want like the most basic stuff, and I can't believe they weren't getting that already.
Yeah, and I don't know. It really boggles my mind that it's come to this, of all things. And publishers are. It's probably got to be publishers sowing the seeds of this, but there are always people online who will think this way, saying, well, programmers, coders, artists, etc. aren't paid that well either, and they have to do crunch. These voice actors don't even have to do crunch. Why should we care about the plight of voice actors when, devs are paid so poorly? I mean...
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that around, and it's just like, the fact that you're treated like shit is not a reason for someone else to be treated like shit.
Yeah, stop treating everybody like shit, right?
I imagine the majority of these people are also the folks that are saying, well, why are there dubs in video games anyway? Which is not an attitude I honestly appreciate very much, because it's silly and it doesn't actively like push for improving, dubbing in any way. It just says, oh, whatever. These people are paid little because they suck, I guess. It's kind of.
I mean, it's not just localization. It's people doing original voices in English as well.
Right.
But yeah, to your point, yeah, localization is also an issue. Like people are like, why voices at all? I want my original, anime waifu in her squeaky Japanese voice or whatever.
That was the Persona 5 delay in a way. Actually, was they were going to get dual voice acting.
Yeah. So my understanding is that wasn't the cause of the delay. That's sort of like a gift they're giving to fans because of the delay. Mm-hmm. What apparently caused the delay, and this hasn't been officially confirmed, is that Atlas Japan basically didn't give the script for the game to Atlas USA until the game went gold.
Oh my!
So basically, the localization process started in like September of this year.
Oh my god!
That's
and then it would be like, hey, and we'll hire all these voice actors. Oh shit, they're on strike.
That's insane.
I mean, I don't think they're striking against Atlas/Sega, luckily, so they don't have to worry about that. But
Atlas/Sega. But if you look up the list, because I was like looking into this when it first happened, there were a bunch of companies on there that I didn't recognize at all. And what they are is they're basically the companies that Atlas and Sega and Bethesda and everyone use when they're like, we need voice acting, we'll contract this company. They're like these specific voice acting contractors. Okay. So yeah, if you actually look up the list of clients that those contractors have, it's everyone. Like every game is fucked at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's why it's getting delayed now. But yeah, it's Atlas Japan really mismanaged this one. Like, there's no excuse. Like, the script got finalized way before the game went gold. There was no reason to hoard it that jealously. So,
let's be worried about like spoilers leaking or something.
I mean, spoilers are leaking all over the place right now because the game is out in Japan.
The delay doesn't help that.
I think that is part of why they're like super reluctant to like give any information to these voice actors, because we don't trust you. You're gonna leak this character like on a website or something. And well, first off, that's just that's ridiculous.
I mean, to make an analogy, who's ever been concerned that Leo DiCaprio is going to release spoilers, right?
But, have you seen I forget his name. He's the guy that voices Ken in Street Fighter and Dante in Devil May Cry. He will tell. I can't remember his name. Sorry, but yeah. If you find him at conventions, he'll basically tell you anything he's working on. Like he was like, "Yeah, I'm Ken in the new Street Fighter," way before Street Fighter 5 got announced.
Maybe you don't trust that. Maybe you just stop giving that guy jobs though. At that point,
you can't say Dante. The best.
Drew Coombs is his name, or maybe Matt Kaminsky.
Okay.
Or Tim Phillips. There have been lots of people who voiced this guy. Ruben Langdon. There have been like four different guys according to Wikipedia.
Ken is such a guy. I mean, he's only one of the more notable characters in that franchise. But yes.
Anyway, no, I was going by Dante and Devil May Cry.
So I'm sorry. Yeah, never mind.
There have been lots of people who have voiced him. Yeah. Anyway, maybe Matt Kaminsky. He's the most famous of them on the list. But yeah, I guess maybe they're worried about spoilers leaking, and maybe there are a few bad actors. But then, I mean, by bad actors, I mean not bad at acting. I mean people who release spoilers. Maybe stop hiring those people, and then hire the people who don't release spoilers, and then you don't have to worry about, not giving people scripts until it's time to record.
I wonder how hard Nolan North is to work with.
Probably not that hard, considering he keeps getting hired. We're asking how hard Nolan North might be to work with.
Ruben Langdon, by the way.
Okay, Ruben Langdon. Yeah.
Yep.
One of the names on that list.
One of the things is, does anyone give a shit that much about is the amount of video games that have spoilers in that actually matter? Like, they're not that.
I mean, I don't like getting spoiled on a video game, but yeah.
Persona 5 would be that one spoilers heavy. But say the Ruben Langdon dude, it's fucking Street Fighter.
Hey, there's a story mode, right?
I would be I would be spoiled if Ken wasn't in a Street Fighter game at this point. I mean, he's
has he ever not been in one?
oh boy, maybe maybe Street Fighter 3. I haven't looked it up. I have not looked it up in a while.
No,
but I know
Street Fighter 3.
Oh, like from the start?
Oh, from like New Generation. That's a good question. He might not have been in that because they originally didn't want to have Rue or Ken.
Right.
Yeah,
I know in Third Strike, definitely, yes.
Come on.
Yeah. So yeah, those it seems like, until the industry sort of wisens up, they're going to keep running into these disputes over and over again. And we're going to keep getting voice actor strikes and delayed games and games that never even come out and games that we can't play. So speaking of games that we can't play, let's transition to games that we're not playing by choice. Games in our backlog.
Game, like, development, that kind of thing.
Pardon me?
I just want to say one more thing on the last couple.
Oh, sure. Before we transition.
I think one of the things...
Let's ignore my segue.
It was a very nice segue.
Thank you.
I think one of the things you have to take into account, though, is, like, game development is still really, really young as an art form. But game development only really started hard in, like, the late 80s. So, like, these are basically teething problems. Like, there were these kind of problems in the film industry in the 20s kind of thing. And they still have to figure out what games are, basically. So,
yeah,
it's
I mean, there are lessons to be learned from film and television. And I think sometimes the video game industry takes the trappings of film and television without taking the more practical aspects of the industry. And I think it really needs to do both. Preferably more of the latter than the former.
By the way.
Pardon me?
Ken was in Street Fighter 3 New Generation. I just checked that.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Never mind then. Maybe EX or something.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Oh, probably not.
Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about what's in our backlogs. Because, there are all these games that we can't play because they'll never come out. But there are all these games that we buy and we never end up playing, or that we don't play for years after purchasing them. So, what I wanted to ask you guys, just brief survey, what's in your backlog?
Well, my Steam account is sad, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But one thing that I've been really kind of frustrated by myself about is how the PlayStation Plus has been a lot of like really great free games recently, for PS3, and I'm just not playing them. I mean, there's Red Dead Redemption, which I've never played. I know, shocker, like that's crazy apparently. Like Okami HD was a free game, which I haven't played yet. The fourth Sly game, just lots and lots of these big heavy hitters, and like a decent amount of collection of games, and I could just easily just sit down and play them. But like, I guess I've grafted myself to the PC recently, and I just don't have the urge to sit down on a couch and play video games, which is a weird concept, I realize. But I guess
it's where I am right now, in that like I've been playing on my PC for the past month or so, and I haven't fired up my PS4 in ages. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, you were saying about your backlog on the PS3.
But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like I use my PS3 a lot as kind of a media center that I watch stuff via my computer. Stuff like Universal Media Server, PS3 Media Server, the like, where it transcodes over to the PS3. I use that a lot. I use video apps for it and such. So. But yeah, definitely not for games anytime lately. And it's depressing. Like, again, there's like a lot of like great games that I keep paying the $17.99 or whatever it is every 3 months for PlayStation Plus and play none of these games, which is not a good investment at all, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like that's why I didn't subscribe to PS Plus, because I knew I wasn't going to use my PS3 or my PS4 for multiplayer. So I knew that I'd just be paying for games that I'd never end up playing. And people keep telling me, oh, PS Plus is such a great deal. You get all these games. Yeah, but if I'm not playing them, then why am I paying for them, right? Yeah.
And sometimes they'll have like these this breakdown of sorts where it's like, these are all these games I don't want to play anymore, so I'll just start deleting stuff. And like for an example, to kind of go back to the very beginning here, the Devil May Cry HD collection was one of the free games offered.
That's like 4 games.
And I think it's just the first 3 actually, but
That's like 3 games.
But yeah, but
sorry.
But
Devil May Cry 2 doesn't count, so it's like 2 games.
Yeah,
that's like 2 games.
Yeah,
okay. Sorry.
I've never played 2, and I've been told otherwise not to. But no, it's just. But stuff like that is like, well, okay. I remember liking 1 and 3, but boy, am I ever going to find time to like put serious sort of work into these anymore? And the answer is no, really no.
Yeah, I mean, you're an adult now. Apparently, that comes with responsibilities and doing things that aren't playing video games. We have limited time, unfortunately.
Yeah, and unfortunately,
you lose them all if you stop subscribing, don't you?
Well, you gain them right back if you subscribe again.
But it's just kind of like one of those things, like, you have so many games, but you can't unsubscribe, otherwise you lose all these games.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing almost, right?
That is kind of a way, yes. But yeah, but it's kind of like that. I mean, that's a major problem. It's just, again, and I think I've said this before, but consoles just really aren't core to the thing I'm kind of like big on right now. Like, for example, there was Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Dragon Quest 7, which were 2 games I really enjoyed recently. I would not have been able to finish those on console. Simply put, I would have never had the patience to sit through those games if I couldn't just like grab my 3DS and like grind away at bed, or just if I'm like waiting for something that in public, I can just pull it out and play a little. Like, I would never have the time to play those very long, detailed games on a console.
Yeah, that's definitely understandable. Admirax, what's in your backlog?
I've got a couple that I keep promising myself I'm gonna play, and to this day I still haven't. But Assassin's Creed Black Flag has been sitting gathering dust for a couple of years now. I know it's good. Everything about it, all the ingredients add up to a game that I know I would enjoy, but for some reason I just have never put it in my PlayStation, and I don't know that I'm ever going to get around to it, which is a shame because I love the idea of just being a pirate and listening to sea shanties. Everything about that speaks to me.
Yeah, I actually have. I stopped playing the Assassin's Creed series sort of midway through Brotherhood. So I still have Revelations and 3 in my backlog. I don't know why I even own those games, but they're there.
I mean, I think I might be shy about playing it because Assassin's Creed 2 I had a lot of fun with, but it got just so repetitive.
Yeah, and it's not the most engaging of games, really.
Yeah,
you guys are
so
breaking
I guess
my heart. I am way too into Assassin's Creed for my own good. I have a shrine to it in my house with every collector's edition and statue. I have all the shitty handheld games that I've all beaten and don't do that. They're
Chronicles
really
games. Oh dear.
Not just Assassin's Creed Chronicles. I have Altair's Chronicle on the DS. I have.
There was a DS Assassin's Creed game.
There were 2 DS games.
Holy shit!
There is Altair's Chronicle, which came out, which is a prequel to the first game, and is like this shitty isometric platformer, which is awful. There is Discovery, which takes place between AC2 and Brotherhood, which is like this weird, like a Sonic game, a speed momentum-based 2D platformer. Does
Ezio gotta go fast?
Yeah, he goes really fucking fast. There is
my God.
Bloodlines on the PSP, which is a direct sequel to Assassin's Creed 1, following like how Altair hooks up with that Templar chick. There's the Vita one with Aveline, which is the best game in the franchise. Then there are all the Chronicles ones. Then, I am too much into Assassin's Creed for my own good.
Oh wow!
That seems like there's more than the 17,000 Kingdom Hearts spin-offs on portables.
Oh, there is. I haven't even gotten into the Facebook games yet.
Oh no!
Oh, there are Assassin's Creed Facebook games.
There are Facebook games that are very important to the lore. Like, it's all canon.
I have no idea what's actually going on in Assassin's Creed. I've been playing Brotherhood on and off since 2013 and still have not beaten it. Every time I fire it up like every 4 months, I have no idea what's going on. I play a mission and I'm like, I don't remember the plot, so I'm just not going to play this ever again. And I play it 4 months later. I get the urge.
There are like weird space aliens and shit. And at the point the game is at now, there are like alien AI systems in the internet trying to take over the world.
I've never.
So
I think
how does that put us back in time to going to London? Wait, don't answer that question. I feel like there's a long story.
I think many of the reasons why I really haven't gotten to that series is that I don't care about the real world stuff at all.
No.
Like, I'd rather just explore, these thoughtful, like amazing, worlds from the past. Instead, then I guess Kristen Bell occasionally talks to me or something in reality, and I'm just like, no, I don't care.
Well,
See, I'm actually the exact.
Didn't she get
Sorry,
killed
go ahead.
off?
I have no idea.
She does get killed off at the end of
She gets
Brotherhood.
killed off because she's a traitor. She's actually a Templar.
Oh, God.
Well, my understanding is that she gets killed off because Kristen Bell was only contracted for 3 games, and there was really just going to be 1, 2, and 3, but then they decided to expand on the Ezio character and make 2 more Ezio games, which meant they had to kill out Kristen Bell's character early.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might be
Anyway.
the reason that I haven't picked up Black Flag yet, is because what's the outside stuff called? The company
Vertigo.
that does it? Yeah.
Oops.
I couldn't get through that shit in Assassin's Creed 2. It was like watching paint dry.
It's way worse in Assassin's Creed 4.
Oh boy.
I think
It's like
wait,
this weird, like, first person thing where you're like walking around an office looking at computer screens.
Oh, that sounds
so it's like
miserable.
Dear Esther, but or more like Tacoma or Gone Home.
Yeah,
Sections,
but without
basically?
like the interesting writing.
Okay. Yeah.
Why
I can
why
see
would they
that.
do that? Why in the world? That's like everyone's least favorite part of those games. Why would they expand on
Okay.
that part?
Wait. That's actually, and I know I'm gonna get shit for this. I actually find the present day storylines way more interesting than whatever the hell's going on in the past. I know I'm like the only person in the world with that opinion.
That's why I'm into this series as hard as I am, because the present day stuff is amazing. If it makes you guys that don't like the present day stuff feel any better, though, Unity and Syndicate have completely dropped that. You'd never leave the Animus in it.
That does make me feel better.
Shit. Syndicate is
Yeah,
the
you
best
can just,
Assassin's
like-
Creed they've ever made, though.
Yeah, you can just grapple hook around London as what's her face? Evie? Jacob? I forget the
There's
characters'
Jacob
names.
and Evie Fry are the 2 characters you can switch between.
Yeah. Yeah, so you mentioned there's another game in your backlog, not just Assassin's Creed, but there was one more?
Oh,
or
this
is that it?
one's much more embarrassing. I have had Myst on my computer for years and haven't ever gotten around to it. And it's something
Oh,
I want to
gosh.
play just, for cultural awareness' sake. And I know it's a great game, but I haven't played it ever, and it's pretty embarrassing at this point.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Same here.
Oh wow.
Even
Okay,
more
good.
embarrassing, it was a gift from someone, and I have not done the virtual equivalent of opening the gift.
Myst was like a pack-in title for like my Pentium 166 like my first major computer when I was a kid, and I never got very far.
Yeah, I had Myst when I was like a little kid as well, and like you walking along, I have no idea what I'm doing. You can't get past the first room. It's like, what am I supposed to do with these like balls rolling down, like chambers filled with water, and that game's hard. If you want to play it, it's a walkthrough.
Yeah, and there's how many different redone versions of that now? Like the Real Myst stuff, where
I have Real Mist. That's the version I have.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like sliding, or I forgot what the original technology was, but some old Macintosh something where it just basically slides. The game was basically slides.
Yeah, it was all 2D static backgrounds basically, and Real Mist puts everything in engine.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
because
kind
it was
of
like full motion videos, wasn't it? FMV games. Or was
Yeah, I
the
think it
original
had
Myst not
some.
even that?
The original Mist had some FMV components, like there were some video recordings, but it was otherwise drawn art, if I remember correctly. But I might be mistaken.
No, I
you open a book and there's like a square size of QuickTime video just talking to you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's from the old days when they actually used to embed QuickTime videos in games.
I love it.
Oh man, yeah, that was from way back. Ben, what's in your backlog?
way too much. I don't.
You can just name a couple, or you can just like read the entire list, and we can laugh at each one.
I don't have a lot that like I've never touched, which I think was one of the prompts in the thing. But I play games for a little bit and then get bored really quickly. So I have Watch Dogs, which I mainly got because of the Assassin's Creed ties, because I'm a sad person. Watch Dogs sucks. Don't play it.
Wait, does it actually have Assassin's Creed ties? I've beaten the game ages ago.
One of the main
it does
characters
suck.
in Assassin's Creed 4 dies in Watch Dogs.
Oh, what?
Wow, that's
Why? Why?
There is the head of the company you're working for in the present day stuff in Assassin's Creed 4. He disappears towards the end of the game. One of the assassination missions in, like the side missions in Watch Dogs, is this dude has showed up in your town, kill him. And if you like download like all his information and hack him and everything, he's got like head of Sturgo Entertainment Industry and all that shit.
Oh God, why? That Watch Dogs just sorry. I could go on about everything wrong with Watch Dogs, but we're gonna save that for another podcast. Anyway, yeah. What else is in your backlog?
I'm really wanting to get into, but I haven't, because I'm pretty much the opposite of you guys, where I can't play games on PC. I just can't focus when I'm playing games on PC. But I've got this game, Honey Road's Underdog Fighter, which is like this indie visual novel / fighting game / beat 'em up, where you play as this girl in high school who is secretly in this like underground masked wrestling fighting league.
I figured out what the premise of this game was from the title. Based on,
but like,
I was like, that sounds like a VN.
It's all
I think I know what it's about.
While like you're in high school, like learning different things, training and everything. But then when you go into the fight, it's like a proper fighting game, and like where you have to like use all the skills you've learned and do all the novel stuff and everything. And
this is like the most anime thing ever.
That's the thing.
Anyway,
it's
sorry.
not anime. It's made by like a Western developer, so it's like the art style.
They even gave it like a weird broken English anime name. Everything.
But like they've done this thing where like I really like, because you know how in visual novels it's just like a static picture of a character standing there, and
yeah,
it's a visual novel. Everyone knows what they look like. In this, like all the characters are constantly animated and like doing little idle poses, and it just looks amazing. Like, and it's well written, and it's a great game, but I haven't gotten around to beating it. And the other one, which I haven't got I've done a little bit of, but I am terrified of starting properly because I will lose my life to it, is The Witcher 3. Like,
that's also, well, actually the first two Witcher games are in my backlog because I never even started them. I have them.
Don't bother with The Witcher 1. It's not a good game.
Yeah, I did actually finish the first Witcher, and it's interesting for the time. It's an example. It's an example of why you should not build a type of game like that on a very, very modified, like Infinity Engine, or wasn't it like, I forgot what it was, but
it was Bolt Skate Engine or something.
Something just really super weird, and
yeah, it was something definitely not designed for a third-person game.
Oh, that was, but yeah, it's interesting. But I have two in my backlog. It just kind of sits there thinking, oh, I guess, I don't know. What mods do I need first? Because that's
all of them.
Which is amazing. You don't need to mod that game. It's actually really good. Like, I had really high doubts about playing it after I played The Witcher 1, but it's like, it plays more like Dark Souls than anything else I could really think of. And it's just a fantastic game. And Witcher 3 is more of the same, but in a gigantic open world, and it's apparently like 500 hours long. So I'm scared of like losing my entire year to that game.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, there's when it comes to like games you're scared to play. I mean, also games that you're like afraid you're going to get attached to. For example, I own the first XCOM reboot game, and
Enemy Unknown.
Yeah, and I haven't played it because I don't know why I bought it then, but I don't know why. I just have this idea where like, I don't want to play a game where permadeath is this thing that's going to happen.
I mean, it's also a buggy piece of shit, so you're saving yourself a lot of trouble.
And I do,
and I completely understand the permadeath thing. I remember Valkyria Chronicles, I quit playing because I got up to a level and like all my favorite characters died, and I'm like, no, fuck it, I'm over.
It's why my only Fire Emblem game I played was Fates, because it has the casual mode where it's not permadeath. Though I wasn't terrible enough to do the mode below that, which will actually revive your characters like during the battle. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. Like I will accept them like going away for the one battle, but I don't want them to come back. That's silly.
Yeah, so you're casual, not that casual.
Is it actually possible to lose a fight then?
I imagine that the way you'd lose is that like the timers like aren't there, like they're like 3 or 4 turns. Like if the last person falls and no one's ready to revive, I think that might be the way.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. But yeah, it does seem like it makes it maybe even a little too easy. But yeah, it's there for people who like it, so not gonna complain if they want to play it that way.
I was also gonna say the 99% bug, which is pretty infamous. The one where I have 99% and yet I will miss all the time. Apparently, that's pretty common in XCOM.
Yeah, XCOM has a lot of bugs, a lot of glitches. Like sometimes it'll skip your turn with no explanation. Sometimes. Yeah, other times, then there are just some like really annoying bugs that don't really affect gameplay, but just are huge quality of life problems. Where sometimes your weapon will just clip through everything in front of it. There are lots of graphical bugs. There's one bug where your save files get reordered in a completely random order, so you can't find your most recent save without going through your entire list of like 100 saves. Oh. Eventually, I just got so frustrated with the bugs. I was like, "This game is garbage. It's not even that enjoyable. Why am I playing it?"
I wanted to avoid saying this, but the other problem I have with the Civ 6 patch is that one of my games will crash on the exact same turn and I can't continue it, which is a bad thing.
I mean, yeah. Please feel free to call studios out for game-breaking bugs,
because like otherwise, like the games have been fine and it's an overall an improvement, but boy, like, yeah, you might want to fix that. I can't complete my game.
Yeah, and Firaxis, I think, has been let off the hook relatively easily for the problems it had with XCOM Enemy Unknown. And the most galling thing about the whole XCOM thing is that a lot of the same bugs were present in XCOM 2, meaning that they have a fundamental problem with the engine that they just did not bother to fix between Enemy Unknown and 2. Yeah, Firaxis has really gotten off easy, and they're just releasing buggy games out into the wild with nobody really criticizing them for it. And yeah, it's unfortunate. Anyway, moving on. As for what's in my backlog, Ben mentioned the Honey Fighter visual novel. There's a visual novel in my backlog that I've been meaning to play for a while, called Clannad, and it's supposed to be this big emotional slice of life drama type story that I've been meaning to.
Wait, did you say Clannad?
Yeah.
Klannad? Is that the one with the fucking eyes?
I don't think so. I don't think it's supernatural at all.
No, the like really weirdly drawn giant fisheye things on the anime girls.
Oh yeah, probably, but that's a lot of.
Oh yeah, it is. Oh man. Sorry, I've just constantly laughed at the visuals of this like game of like how their eyes are drawn. Like it looks like someone's photoshopped all the characters to make them look dumb, but that's just how they're drawn.
See, now I can't unsee it. I'm looking at screenshots right now, and now all I see. Oh no, the only thing I see is the eyes.
They're weird as hell, and like her eyes are on a weird slant, and like.
They're weird by anime standards, yeah. Even by anime standards, I give it that.
So I guess you're not going to continue to not play this game then.
Yeah, maybe it's not going to be in my backlog anymore. I'm just never going to play it. But no, there's some other like really big games in my backlog. I mentioned the Witcher series is in my backlog, but Final Fantasy VII, I've had that for a while. Never played it. Big indie games like Bastion and Limbo, still in my backlog. Haven't played them. And I feel Dear Esther still in my backlog, and that's a really famous one. There are all these games that that I own, all these big, by big I mean famous indie games, that I've just not gotten around to playing. I think I still have. I might even have. I don't even remember whether or not I own half of these games. Wait, I own Papers, Please. I'm looking at my Steam library right now. I didn't even know that I owned Papers, Please.
I'm just gonna say on Bastion, that game ends really strong. Like that's one of the best kind of like ending emotional arc kind of thing I've seen in a game in a long time.
I liked Bastion a lot better than I liked Transistor, so they're both interesting. But I mean, of the Supergiant game stuff, I thought Bastion was better.
Yeah, I've seen that's a common opinion. I know a lot of people say they prefer the combat in Transistor, but yeah, overall I think people narratively tend to prefer Bastion for whatever reason.
Also, instead of playing Limbo, get Inside? Their follow-up game.
That is on my wish list.
If you play that, it basically invalidates any reason you could play Limbo because it's like the same but just better in every possible way.
Yeah, it's actually the #1 game on my Steam wish list right now is Inside. And yeah, it looks really neat, but I'm just not going to get around to it for a while because I have so many other games on the go.
Inside's good. It's like 3 hours long. Like, you can sit down and play it in one burst.
I like games like that. That just, they have one concept, they do it really well, you play it, and then you're done after 2 or 3 hours. And
I think they appreciate short games so much more as I've gotten older and don't have as much time to play games.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I like, say, big, long RPGs. I'm a huge fan of BioWare games. I like JRPGs like the Persona series, but they take so goddamn long, right? Like, it took me 120 hours to beat Persona 4. It meant there's so many other games. I played it last year. It meant there's so many other games last year that I couldn't play because I was devoting so much time to Persona 4.
Like I remember, brought up FF7 was on your list. I got up to the like final area, the crater at the end of it, and my save file got corrupted, and like that was like 200-hour save file because I got the golden chocobo, got all the summons and everything. I'm like, fuck it. I'm just not beating this game. I'm not doing that again.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, it's not that long of a game, but yeah, if you can waste your time forever. As the meteor is gonna kill us all, you should go play the gold saucer and get a gold chocobo. But yeah, 7, yeah. I almost wonder. I'm fascinated to see how that remake is going to annoy so many people.
Nobody is going to be happy with that remake.
Nobody.
Let me tell you. Nobody. People who are fans of the original will complain about how it's different.
Because I wasn't that much of a fan of the original because I'm, I think, one of the 4 people that played the original PC port, which is not good. Like, this terrible. Is how quality the PC port was. All the FMVs in that game, if you put the CD in your CD-ROM, open it up, there's a folder, FMVs, with just the WMV files of every single FMV in the game. And I had a glitch happen in just after Ares gets killed, where there's like the big emotional moment and everything, right? Where all the characters' legs stopped touching the ground and were pointing like 180 degrees straight up through their heads. And it's like this big emotional moment of everyone's like, oh my god, Ares is dead, and they're all like being sad and solemn, and they're all kind of like hovering around with these legs sticking out of their heads, and it's like, well, this has ruined it.
Though the thing that ruined it for me, which is not game related, but someone put like the Seinfeld theme like over the background of her like falling to the bottom of the sea. It works so well.
Oh yeah, gotta get that slap bass in there. So yeah, I mean, is the FF7 port that's on Steam right now still terrible?
No, that's a completely different one. That's really good.
Oh, okay, so they sort of reported it.
Yeah, that's
actually they
like
fixed up the port
version and everything. Like this was the very original one that came out at the same time as the PlayStation 1 game.
Okay.
Like
so
this was back in the day when there were 3 processors you could buy rather than 2. Because I remember like a patch information is now support for Cyrex processors. I'm like, does anyone remember Cyrex?
No.
But
I remember when there were other graphics card manufacturers. I remember when Voodoo and Matrox existed.
Oh man.
But I don't remember other processors.
But yeah, just stuff like that where if you want to talk about an era where games were unfinished and stuff just had to be patched immediately, it's that mid to late 90s situation where, and I think I've said this before, but like games like Sin that launched without enemy AI in some places.
Yeah, I think we mentioned this actually in the last podcast. No, not the last podcast, the podcast before.
Where the boss does not move.
So you just stand there shooting at it and it dies?
I guess. That's what I'd heard. They forgot to program the AI into the freaking boss fight for some reason.
Oh god. How did that make gold? How did they go gold with that?
But there were so many of those games back in that era. Just how
utterly broken.
And this was an era where
patching was harder back then.
Oh yeah, you couldn't just those broadband connections will save us. Oh wait.
Everybody was still on 56k internet.
Like that on because I was N64 mainly back then, and people nostalgia, rose-colored glasses looking at N64 games. N64 games sucked. I
will not have anybody speak ill of Super Mario 64.
No, okay.
No.
Let me amend that. N64 games not made directly by Nintendo sucked.
That I will agree with.
The Nintendo ones hold up amazingly, and those people that made them are wizards. But Perfect Dark is one of the most fondly remembered games and everything. That game.
Oh no, it ran like shit.
Perfect
Dark is a fucking amazing game that runs like shit.
It's awful.
No,
I remember
the frame rate's 10 frames per second. Imagine that game running at the proper frame rate.
You can
That'd be a fucking awesome game.
And
it's on 360, right? They ported it?
Yeah, 360
they did
version.
it on 360, and it's in the Rare Replay on Xbox One. It's amazing if it plays how it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And that game.
God, I loved that game as a kid. Then again, I played it as a kid, and when you're a 10-year-old kid, fuck, it doesn't matter if it looks like shit. You're playing a fucking video game on a console. You don't care how shitty it looks like. But yeah, it was definitely there were a lot of N64 games that pushed up against the limitations of the console. Even Donkey Kong 64 used to have frame rate drops all over the place.
The fact that it was a good game to save it.
There was there are speedrun tactics that are based entirely on how buggy that game's frame rate is, where they can just roll through walls. I mean,
I forget what game it is, but there's one game that has a speedrun that is entirely based around looking at the floor constantly, so there's nothing on screen, so the frame rate doesn't die.
That would be GoldenEye, which I was going to bring up.
Oh, is it?
Oh, God.
Yeah, where there are just some. There's a great YouTube video, and I can't find it right now, but this guy is just screaming or ranting about something while he's doing a level run, and he's just on the ground and doing basic things, and then he makes the record by a second, and he just freaks out. He's so happy. And it's just recorded and everything, and it's just one of the funniest things on YouTube easily. It's GoldenEye, dude. Wow, people are really, dramatic about that sort of thing. I guess
people love that game. I think I played GoldenEye and Perfect Dark around the same time, so I never got super into GoldenEye because Perfect Dark's like GoldenEye but better.
The thing about GoldenEye. Sorry for interrupting there, but the thing about GoldenEye is that the level design is kind of interesting. It's just that it's ugly as hell, and again, the frame rate is nothing. If it was somewhat better designed and had a frame rate that didn't just die immediately, it would have been even better. I think there were some very positive things to that game, but it hasn't aged the greatest. No.
Isn't that basically
GoldenEye
what
make
the
it into...
Wii remake one was? Just the same game but remade and with Daniel Craig because they couldn't get Pierce Brosnan anymore?
Boy, I don't remember. Possibly.
Did they end up remaking GoldenEye or did they end up putting it in Rare Replay?
No,
there's
licensing
a whole
issues.
Licensing fuck up with that,
Yeah.
which is why it's never been ported to anything since.
Licensing fuck ups ruin a lot of. They keep a lot of games in the vault, unfortunately. I think we've talked about this in the podcast before. No One Lives Forever being the most salient example of a licensing fuck up that has meant we can't play that game anymore.
I think the worst had to be Marvel vs. Capcom series, which appears and then disappears after 3 years every time one comes out, because Marvel won't let them keep selling it.
Yeah, Marvel very jealously guards their properties. I mean, with good reason, because you don't want people abusing beloved comic book properties, but it does mean that you do get these restrictions on games, unfortunately. So to bring us back to backlogs, why do you think some games end up in your backlog, but there's some games you end up playing right away? What makes the difference between a game that you put off playing for months or even years, and a game you just buy and start playing immediately?
Well, I think essentially, I mean, part of it is just I was just waiting for the next person to talk there. I'm sorry. I'll start though. But as a whole, there's just, I think the idea of, like, for example, there are like a lot of short games which I've just kind of finished in one or two sit downs, and then boom, like, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for that. And those games are a lot more accessible and interesting than, say, these long just crawls where you're going to get bored very quickly, and there's me. Oh, I guess there's something else there. But then you feel guilty that, oh, that's a game I kind of wanted to play. And I've had to, like, teach myself in the past few years that it's okay to drop things you're not entirely enjoying.
So do you mean that these are games you start and they're a slog, so you just drop them? Or games that you think will be a slog, so you never end up playing them in the first place?
A little of both.
Okay. Yeah, it invites the question why you ended up buying it in the first place. Not that I'm judging, because I buy so many games I never end up playing.
Because Steam bundles are awful, terrible things.
God, there's so many games that have gotten in bundles that, like Humble Bundles or Steam bundles, where I want like 3 of the games out of the 6, and it's still a good deal to get those 3, and I never end up playing the other 3. There's so many bundles like that.
I wanted to try out the Hitman games, so I bought a bundle of every single DDoS game ever made.
Yeah, and like, it's a good deal, right? For like $100, you get all of them.
It was like 20.
There's like, it's like, and you have like 17 Tomb Raider games. Like, they made like so many like basic Tomb Raider games. Like, you have 1 through 4, and then you have Angel of Darkness, which is infamously bad for just being just this buggy piece of trash. And just
like Underworld, there's a remake. I have a lot.
Yeah, there's Anniversary and a whole bunch of others. Yeah, I still haven't gotten around to playing Rise of the Tomb Raider. That's on my wish list forever.
It's amazing.
I did really like the Tomb Raider reboot, so I want to see sort of a more focused and also more varied version of that.
Basically, Rise of the Tomb Raider shits all over the reboot.
Which I'm actually thankful to hear, because I didn't like the reboot very much at all. I mean, I know I'm kind of that's kind of an opinion that's not the most popular, but I just thought the QTEs were really bad and the combat was not so great.
From memory, I don't think there are any there's one QTE, which is basically a tutorial at the very beginning of the game, and I think that's about it. But,
okay.
Yeah, I didn't like the QTEs in the reboot. I did really like the combat. I will say that. I really love the combat of the first Tomb Raider, and if they can then keep that sort of that very fluid combat that they had in the first in the 2013 game in Rise of the Tomb Raider, then I think I'll be very pleased with it.
Combat is better.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Basically the same, but it also introduces like on the fly crafting. So like when you're hiding behind cover, you're like quickly like reaching up and like just grabbing like cans and like quickly making them into a bomb and throwing them at people and shit, and it's just so much fun.
Yeah, it does sound like it would be a blast. Yeah, so we were talking about backlogs, and I think the reason games tend to end up in my backlog is that games you get in bundles or games you get for free or dirt cheap on like some 90% off Steam sale, they're games that, for some reason I psychologically don't value them very much because I acquired them very easily. Whereas when I spend a lot of money on a game, it's something I feel like I have to play right away, or otherwise I feel like I've wasted money on it. I know I'm falling victim to a whole bunch of behavioral biases and fallacies here, like the sunk cost fallacy. But I definitely feel that if I don't play a game that I spent a lot of money on, that I've been wasting money.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
I think I'm the same way. Like if I go out and buy a game when it's new, then I almost always play it right away. But with my backlog, it's always games that I bought when they're kind of older. They had been released like a couple of years ago, and then I just, for whatever reason, never played them.
Yeah, I got that with Bastion pretty hardcore. I think I bought that like 2 years ago, and I intended to play it 2 years ago. Still have not fired it up.
It's definitely a franchise situation. Like, I mean, I don't have a PS4 right now, and I kind of want one, but that'll happen in the next few months, which is why I'm secretly happy about the Persona delay, which will give me more time to buy a PS4. But for example,
your pain makes me happy. My pain makes you happy.
Yes.
I fucked that up.
Yes.
Anyway,
sorry. But it's like I'm a little guilty about Final Fantasy 15 coming out because I like the more progressive games since 13 and such. So the fact I'm not going to be able to discuss that like on social media and such of others like day and date is kind of upsetting to me for a weird reason. Like those are the type of games where I will buy and I will play immediately, as opposed to like a lot of other things. Civ 6 was another one.
Better? I'll tell you it's garbage so you don't feel as bad about missing it.
I've actually read some promising stuff from people who I trust that have actually played the review code and not the demos.
It looks amazing. I'm shocked to be excited for a Final Fantasy game again. I didn't think I'd feel this.
It's either going to go... I mean, I'm not going to end up playing it because I've never played a Final Fantasy game. Gasp horror.
Here, look at the food like we did a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, I did look at the food. It was mouth-watering. They have some delicious-looking food in that game. But I think it's either going to be an amazing game or just a glorious train wreck. One of those games that sort of it has all these great ideas, but they don't come together, and so it's like you're playing through a maelstrom of weirdness. I think that's what it's going to be.
I've heard open world for a long while, and then it kind of goes to linear stuff toward the end.
Okay, so sort of like that's
the reverse of Final Fantasy 13.
Yes. I can't defend that, but I liked it anyway. It's like again, it's hard to like say yes, that game has so many problems, but I kind of liked it.
I'm an Assassin's Creed fanboy. I understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what games I love in spite of their flaws, and like the one that comes to mind is Undertale, as a game that I really liked in spite of all its flaws, because that game has a lot of problems. But yeah, I think there are lots of games that you can sort of latch onto.
That actually might be a backlog candidate as well, is that everyone has told me play that, and I bought it, and like I just never started it.
I will say, how do I put this about Undertale? I think it's a game that you should play, if only because it's so much different than games that are currently on the market.
I think the memes kind of scared the hell out of me for a while because it's
a very memeable game.
It's like there were
massive fan for that game kind of turned me off ever playing it. Same with Overwatch. It's just like everyone tells you to play it so fucking hard, and you're just like, and
I think I know more about the Overwatch characters than in games I've actually played. And I've never touched Overwatch.
Yeah.
It's just all over the goddamn internet. Everywhere.
Like, I mean, I was like, well, I've seen like wrestling, like create a character, like versions of Undertale memes. I'm like, what? Why is this a thing? It's just stuff like that just kind of scared me so stiff. But people were saying, oh, go right ahead. Just please play it. And there was the infamous, there was the GameFAQs character contest or game contest where people just went so crazy because all the Undertale fans just like
they named it the greatest game of all time over I think Super Mario World 3, Super Mario Brothers 3 or something like that.
Something like that.
Got really mad.
Oh God, yes. And that was just dear Lord. And
It's a good game. Don't get me wrong. I would hesitate to call it the greatest game of all time.
Right.
But it's definitely a good game, and it's unique enough that I think you should play it. Try not to be too scared by the memes.
No, I understand. I have been reprimanded a lot by smarter people than me that saying that's a stupid reason to hate the game. Go play it.
I mean, I think that is. I don't think it's totally stupid. I think you can be very annoyed with the game's fan base. I'm definitely annoyed with, say, The Witcher's fan base or Dark Souls fan base, because they're like, get good, scrub. Or when it comes to The Witcher, the tits make this so mature.
See, I love Dark Souls, but I'm not remotely good at that game.
On that in the second game.
Oh, the Witcher 2 or Dark Souls 2?
No, The Witcher 2, shits on how weird and creepy the obsession with tits in the first game was. Because in the first game, every single chick you talk to, Gerald bones, because he's a fucking seedy perv. And then in the second game, there's this chick that you talk to, and she's like, oh, I need your help and everything. I can make it worth your while. And Gerald's like, dude, calm down, I'll help you, Jesus.
Keep it in your goddamn pants, man.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, back on Backlog, though.
Go ahead.
I reckon I know why I have a backlog, and it's because I'm a glutton, because I'm sitting here looking at my computer. There is Honey Rose sitting on the desktop, which I am in the middle of playing. My 3DS is sitting there with Pokemon Moon in, which I am playing. My PSP is charging, which I've hacked, and I'm currently playing all the Mega Man games on. I just bought Bloodborne yesterday and started playing that, and I'm currently playing through Hyperlight Drifter on my Xbox One. And some of those
That is a lot of game playing machines. I think you kind of restrict yourself.
The Wii U and the PS3 setup as well, which probably have games. I'm up to the last boss in Star Fox, but that game sucks, so I'm probably not going to get back to it. But yeah, I am always playing lots of games, and I usually forget some of them.
Oh, I'm definitely like that. I basically abandoned GTA 5 partway through because I got a PS4. Also, GTA 5 is kind of a terrible game.
Yeah, it's not good.
You can buy it for PS4 now.
I could also buy it for PC, which would be my preference, because the controls for the gamepad controls for that game are just utter garbage. So I'd probably enjoy mouse and keyboard more for that kind of game. So if I bought it again, it'd be on PC. But yeah, there are games that I just abandoned because something new and shiny comes along, and I'm like, well, I could play this semi-boring game that I've sort of been slogging through, or I could play this new shiny game. And then I get partway through that new shiny game, and then another new shiny game comes out. I'm like a gaming magpie. I can't concentrate on something unless it's new and shiny. And that's bad, because there are so many games that I bought ages ago. I'm looking at my list that I sent out to you guys, and there's Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. That's one of the first games I bought on Steam, and I still haven't played it. Yeah.
That.
So the way the Prince of Persia franchise worked was, after they did the first two Prince of Persia games, and Prince of Persia.
That is. I'm sorry. I got really hard into the Prince of Persia. I just can't remember which one that was the one that kind of looked like Jake Gyllenhaal, but not really.
Yeah. So that was the one after the Prince of Persia 2008 reboot, and people didn't like the 2008 reboot for whatever reason.
Because they were wrong and stupid, and that game is amazing.
I think it was because you couldn't die.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that game
basically
isn't
just
super
generous
hard.
checkpointing.
Yeah, it's super generous checkpointing. It has a wonderful aesthetic. I think it's super repetitive, and that's the problem. But so yeah, in response to the reception of that game, they basically went back to the Sands of Time trilogy and made another game. And that was the Forgotten Sands. And the Sands of Time trilogy, don't get me wrong, it's a good trilogy. I mean, the first and third games are good. We forget about Warrior Within.
That never happens.
I like Warrior Within if you ignore the Godsmack soundtrack.
So it wasn't. So you know who actually did the soundtrack? I can look this up. So it was members of the Canadian rock group, the Tea Party.
Oh,
they did.
No.
Yes, I can look
Wait,
this
the
up.
Tea Party, is that a different Tea Party to the Nick Cave Tea Party?
Yes, it's a Canadian rock. It's a famous Canadian rock group that apparently is not famous outside of Canada. So I don't know why I'm calling them famous. Anyway,
Cave did the soundtrack to that game? But no, that would have been amazing.
Yeah. So apparently it was for, I'm looking this up right now. For Warrior Within, it was a man by the name of Stuart Chatwood. And for Sands of Time, it was also Stuart Chatwood? Wait, that doesn't seem right. Anyway, point is, it was members of the Tea Party who did the soundtrack for all three of those games. And so the first game of the series, they did, that very... They're a group that sort of melds Eastern progressive rock with blues rock and hard rock. So they went to their Eastern influences for Sands of Time and for Two Thrones. But for Warrior Within, they went with this weird nu metal angsty soundtrack, and it sounded really bad. I don't know why they did it.
It also had the theme song done by actually Godsmack. Like, I Stand
Oh,
Alone.
really?
I Stand Alone was in that game, and it's hilarious and awful, and I don't know why they did it.
Yeah, it's... Why would they go down that road? I don't know. Games are never improved by adding aggro metal.
I would challenge that, because the only reason you should ever play the Fight Club game is because Fred Durst is in it.
Fred Durst is also a unlockable character in the third SmackDown game. The first PS2 game.
That makes the Fight Club game even more hilarious because it's not even the best fighting game that Fred Durst is in.
Fred Durst is in multiple fighting games. Oh god.
Yeah, it was like Shut Your Mouth was the SmackDown game. It was the first PS2 one, the one that required. It required
that was
4.
when Undertaker had Rolling as his theme, wasn't it?
Yes, that sounds like the right timeline. Yes. So it was all weird, and that game was also like not very optimized because I remember at the time it was like, oh hey, you need 4 megabytes of your 8 on your memory card to save.
Holy shit!
I'm like, oh no, and that was fixed obviously.
How many fucking memory cards do you have to buy to play to deal with Fred Durst? I don't think Fred Durst is worth half a memory card.
No, he wasn't, but he was fun. He was fun to beat up, that's for sure. But I know a spoiler, but
the best thing about Fred Durst.
Do you get to punch him in the face and say, "Sorry, what were you saying?"
Have the facial rights for Edward Norton or Brad Pitt. So Fred Durst is the only recognizable person in that game.
Oh, God.
it's a shame.
Do you get to punch him in the face and say you rearranged his nose? Sorry, that was a bad joke. Let's move on from that.
No, let's dwell. Let's dwell on that for a
Let's
minute.
dwell on the bad Limp Bizkit pun.
Know your role, not shut your mouth. I'm going to correct myself immediately there. Wow, I'm sorry.
I think you actually could in the Fight Club game because it had the X-ray system from Mortal Kombat 9 before Mortal Kombat did.
It's a shame.
So you can see the skeleton. You can see Fred Durst's skeleton as you tear him to shreds.
Break his bones and everything. It actually had a system where if you hit them in the arm and break their arm, then you can't use your left punch afterwards, which was actually stolen from a old fighting game called Biofreaks that no one ever played. But
that was the many N64 fighting games. War Gods and Biofreaks.
Did that one also run at a crappy frame rate?
Mace the Dark Age is the best fucking fighting game on the N64, and I will fight anyone that says otherwise. It makes the Dark Age.
I mean, all fighting games are the same, so who really cares?
No, War Gods at Kabuki.
I know, I've said that. I know, I just say that. I said it on a previous podcast just to troll people. I think Otaku no Mike had a heart attack when I said that.
I was merely rolling my eyes when I was on that podcast.
I think you have a permanent eye roll from this podcast, all the stupid things I've said.
No, I'm sure I say my share of stupid things, so I'm not worried.
Yeah, Suikoden's a great game.
It's a great game. You should shut up and play
it. All right. Maybe I will go shut up and play it. And on that note, I think, is there anything else about backlogs you guys wanted to bring up before we call this podcast to a close?
I have the first two Mass Effect games in my backlog, and I'm sure you hate me for it.
Rectify that immediately.
I will stand by that because I played through about the first 4 missions of Mass Effect 1 the first time I played it, and quit when I got up to the Matriarch Venezia fight because fuck that fight, and it took me a year and a half to go back and finish that.
Oh yeah, that is a tough fight. If you're playing on anything but the easiest difficulty level, that fight takes forever.
Also, in retrospect, Mass Effect 1 sucks. Like,
it was definitely a very different style of game.
I played a sniper in that game, and that game, the sniper bullets only travel a certain distance, but the enemies can render in further than the distance the sniper bullets can travel. So you can see enemies and not actually be able to shoot them.
Yeah, that's why it's not worthwhile playing as an infiltrator in that game, as I learned the hard way. You should probably go, like, Vanguard or fully biotic to have fun.
Is what my Shepard is, and I can't change now.
Yeah, I played through an infiltrator through all three.
Best class.
That was boring. Sorry?
Best class.
Yeah, it is the best class. Jane Shepard was an infiltrator.
Sniper.
Yeah, Garrus he is the cool sniper in that franchise.
And then you get to because you're both snipers.
Yeah. That sure.
Look,
sorry, like in my version of
like Mass Effect wrong.
Okay, in my version of Mass Effect, I don't think my Shepard ended up with anybody. So if you don't romance Garrus, then Garrus and Tali end up together. So that's what happened in my version of the universe. In my version of the universe, Garrus and Tali end up together and then get vaporized by something, I think. I don't really know how Mass Effect 3 ended. I didn't really pay attention.
No, they all survive. The Shepard that dies. Spoilers for a 5-year-old game.
Oh yeah, we just spoiled the ending of Mass Effect.
Yeah, I'm not.
Shepard.
I can't say I'm all that sad. Though I got spoiled on Red Dead Redemption, and that's kind of like keeping me away from playing that. Like, oh, massive spoiler at the end. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, so Shepard kills Marsden, and then Marsden simultaneously kills Shepard, and that's how it ends.
Wow. Prequel to Mass Effect. When those fucking spaceships came in at the end of Red Dead Redemption, man, I did not see that coming, eh?
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was some fucking weird shit. All right, I think on that note, because this is turning into the audio equivalent of a shit post, I think we need to call this to a close. So thank you very much to Admirax and Ben and PT for joining me today. If you like to keep up to date with the podcast, we actually do have a Tumblr site, avocadogamescast.tumblr.com, and there we post each episode along with a Linkdump that fact checks all of our blathering. So if we say dumb shit here, you can watch me correct it later.
Man, you're not
because
we do back off. You've corrected everything I said.
I'm assuming everything you said was true. I'm assuming all your stories are completely 100% true. I wanted to fact check anything you said about Team Bondi or Konami or Capcom or you actually did have a lot of stories. I remember like we put in the intro for you that we brought you on because you had the inside scoop. I didn't know you'd actually have the inside scoop. This was very fortuitous.
Look, if I play Mass Effect, you're playing Suikoden, okay? Can we just agree on that?
I don't have any platform in which I could play Suikoden.
I will agree that you have to play Suikoden.
Are there Suikoden PS3 games?
They're PS1 classics.
Okay, so I can play Suikoden.
Yeah,
you have to actually do it.
Oh god, no, actually, I remember on a previous podcast we said next year what we would do for a segment on the podcast is we'd go back and make me play a bunch of old games I'd never played before, and then we'd monitor my progress with each podcast, and we'd see how badly I was making my way through all these old games and how shit I was at them.
Well, the first game is like 15, 20 hours. It's not terribly long. So it's kind of a cup of coffee. I mean, you can definitely play a little longer if you want to like grind up. But the reason why I would ask you to play the first one is
really, really slow if it takes you 20 hours.
I'm really, really slow. I mean, I've been playing Digimon Story since the start of the summer. That's how slow I am at games. So yeah, this has been our podcast. Thank you for listening. And we'll join you. We'll be back in a couple of weeks so you can hear us talk about other topics next time. All right, take care, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.